Welcome to the Codebreakers. This is Paradox.
And this is D.
What's going on?
What's up? What's that date, man? Let's hit him with that date one time, man. Let's go ahead and,
It's President's Day, Monday, February 21st, 2022.
Oh, man. President's Day. Oh, man. It is President's Day. February. Oh, man. President's Day and so-called Black History Month. So that's very interesting.
Hold up. It can't be President's Day, is it?
I think that's right. I think it is President's Day. Monday.
Yeah. Monday, right? Yeah, I'm not tripping.
My daughter is not in school. Well, she's out of school for the week, actually.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm right. When you said Black History Month, it threw me off for a second.
I know, right? Yeah, Black History Month and all that jazz. So yeah. So what's going on, man? What's going on, man? I guess our last program, we apologize for that. We got hit with the copyright strike, so we're gonna have to rearrange some things and do things a little bit differently as we get started on this new track into 2022. But yeah, man, there's a whole lot going on right now, and I guess we wanted to just kind of come on and just kind of at least get one in, and then most likely try to get one in, at least one official program in this week. But we wanted to get on and kind of chop it up and just get one on the record because we haven't actually done one for the new year as of yet. So what's new, man? What's new?
I'm watching some of the watching some of the All-Star stuff and basketball, trying to realize how old I am watching all these new guys. Like, I'm trying to find out who these new dudes is.
That's crazy.
It's kind of funny watching it. I said, I still know a few old heads. No, they're not old heads. Obviously, just been in the league a little bit for a few years or whatever, like Steph and them. But
yeah, it's crazy when Steph and
they got the young boys though. I'm like,
Russell Westbrook, KD, and LeBron.
They the vets now.
not only the vets, they're in the twilight of their.
LeBron is, but yeah, Steph's not though. Steph's in his prime.
Though. Yeah, he's still in his prime.
His prime.
He's at the back of his prime. Steph is what, 33, 34?
Is he 34?
33, 34. He got to be in his 30s.
Jeez. Yeah, then you're right, Dan. You're right. I thought he was 28 or something.
I don't think he's in his 20s. Let me check and see how old Steph.
I'm checking now. When did he come into the league? He came to the league that long ago, huh?
He's been in the league for a long time, man.
33?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He got that baby face, though.
He does, man. He does.
33. So you're right. He definitely on the backside. That's so funny, man. He's like, it's crazy.
Nah, man. He been in the league for a minute. Because I remember his brother came out after him. Young Seth.
Yeah.
Seth can shoot too, boy.
He can definitely. Yeah, he on Brooklyn now cooking.
Yeah, man. He can shoot, man. Yeah, he came later, but that shooting ability that they dad got, they got that thing out the womb. You hear me?
Yeah.
They can shoot that ball, man. For real.
Yeah.
It's a pure ass stroke too. That thing just lock it. Let that thing go.
So who would be the middle-aged guy? Who would be the guys that are just getting into their prime? Then who's going into their prime? Anybody?
That's the Giannis. That's the
Giannis. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The big boy out of Philly.
Ben.
No, hell, not Ben.
Not Ben Simmons, but
what? I can't remember his name, man. I'm tripping. We just talked about
him too.
Yeah.
He was just dunking it. He was just cooking it in the All-Star game.
He'd be crushing people too, man. Yeah, he it's like he learned how big he was, but about 2-3 years ago, and he's just been just crushing back.
Joel.
Yeah, Joel Embiid. Yeah, Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
Yeah. I thought Joel Embiid, because when he was in Kansas, he was more of a finesse player. He wasn't really banging like he bangs. He just bangs Bammers now. He's like becoming more and
man.
more like Shaq each year. It's like
Yeah,
he
it's
just knocks
ridiculous
people
too.
out the way.
Yeah, his physicality
It's
is
like
off the
he
charts.
knows it. It's knows like, damn, man, these dudes just when I turn around, I
I mean,
drop
he's the
my
biggest
shoulders
dude out there outside of Giannis. So I
and
mean,
they just move out the way, you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah,
they just shift, the bodies just start to shift out there.
they move out the way for LeBron, and he's bigger than LeBron. So I mean,
Yeah, he's bigger. Yeah, he's significantly bigger than LeBron.
yeah, it's just two different body types.
Absolutely. It's not even in the
So
same
you know, if LeBron can bully people, then Giannis and
yeah.
they can do whatever they want to do. You know, so
Man, the fact that LeBron can still kind of like be an athletic specimen out there is
makes no sense.
that is I told you, man, his numbers, man. When you look at his numbers, you like, whoa,
His numbers are nuts.
that's crazy, man.
I think what it is though is that I think other guys could have played as long as he at this level, but I just think that they didn't take care of their body stuff for real. Because he playing the full schedule. He not sitting out either. He playing.
He played a lot in this All-Star game.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. So
mean,
it's not like he cutting corners trying to find rest. He playing 30, 40 minutes a game. And he not and like you said, he playing, he averaging what, 27, 26?
yeah, 27, 26, no, 27, if I'm not mistaken.
27 a night. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy. You're 19? Come on, man.
I know.
In a league that's more skill based too, by the way.
Skill and athletic base.
Yeah,
A lot of
skill and athletic ability. No,
it's
it's not all that.
a lot of young boys that can they running up and down that
Did
court.
you see did you see Cat call Anthony Towns at a 3-point contest? I'm like, dang.
I didn't see that. I heard he won. He
He
won, right?
won 29 shots. They couldn't get him. They couldn't catch him.
Who else was
Yeah.
in the that's what I'm saying. Who else was in the 3-point joint?
I don't know the guys. I know one guy. I can't think of his name right now. I know two guys actually. I just can't think of their names right now. But I mean, he was cooking. There were guards and shooting guards and stuff too that he's went against.
Does he still play for Minnesota? Cat?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, he's still up there.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. He just I don't know, man. Well, maybe he's getting to his prime too, though, right?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Even
Yeah,
what's his face would
he's
surprise
in the
me.
middle. He's in the middle. I think he's like late 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the other cat? I didn't expect him to come. He just kind of came back around when he went to Golden State. The one who left Cleveland, the one that LeBron didn't want.
Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah,
That
he
was a
made the All
mistake
Star
too.
team. That's crazy. Huh?
That was a mistake too, man. By the way.
Yeah, he should have just worked with him, developed him. LeBron don't want to develop nobody though. You could tell he don't want to deal with it.
Right. He was trying to win that chip, man. That's all.
Yeah, he was on a mission.
On a mission.
I can't take no risk, no guesses. Shoot.
Chasing MJ.
He would not. He not gonna make it.
Nah. He got 4, don't he? He got 4 chips, right?
He got 4, but I won't lie. If he would have got the right guys to come back. But man, AD, man, that boy is fragile. He's like your boy Tony Romo. He got soft bones.
Soft bones, man. Ain't nothing like a Bama with soft bones, man. For real, yeah.
He got soft bones, man. Jeez.
Yeah, he's not built. He's not built for the long haul. He's skilled though. He got skills, man.
Oh man, he got skills for sure.
But yeah, he's not. Yeah, he ain't
His
built.
skills are crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't have. He doesn't have. He can't hold up.
Yeah, his body can't hold
Eh,
up.
Nah. I
And
don't
then
know
you
how
know
much of his
the big
conditioning or what.
and the other bigs that are talented like he is, they just crush him, man. He's in the middle too. I think
Yeah.
he's like he may be a little bit further along than Joel. I think he's a little bit older, but I think
He's
Anthony
in his
may be
prime.
30. 30, yeah, you're
Yeah, he in
still in
his
your
prime.
prime. You could be in your prime until you like depending on how you take his body, he doesn't take care of his body enough, but you could be in your
He
prime
might
till
be.
you're like 35, 36 in basketball if you really an elite player. I mean, because that's what Kevin Durant is coming at the backside of his prime. Um, Steph
Yeah.
is still in his prime, kind of clearly.
Do you think that's going to change because of the way these
James
guys are? Some of
Harden.
these guys are taking care of themselves. You think it's going to change,
Yeah.
where meaning that they're going to be playing to their 40 and they're going to be in their prime
Nah, man. Some of these dudes ain't
a
gonna
lot
play until
longer?
the future.
No. I mean, what's stopping Steph from? I mean, Steph looks like he's 25 years old, man. He's 33.
Hmm.
You don't see him doing this another 3 or 4 years at least.
Steph's
If
game
this,
is not it's not based off athletic ability primarily, so he could play till he could do like his pops. His pops played for a long ass time. His pops
nah,
played
I'm not
until his
talking
like
about that. I'm talking about at this
40.
level. At this level, though,
Yeah, that's what I mean. But his
where he's carrying a team. Because his
yeah,
pops wasn't carrying no teams, was he?
nah. But I mean,
Right.
his
Yeah. No.
ability is not based off pure athletic ability. I mean, he can still carry it and do the razzle dazzle and the kind of, his game is not built off speed and athletic ability. I mean, a little bit of quickness, but it's not predicated that way. He can still lead. He can still lead to be older. I think
That's what I mean.
he
Still
can
be in his
shoot.
prime and be old is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he can shoot, man. Shooting ability is the way he can shoot the ball. I think he should become more of a playmaker, though. Maybe that's something that he could do a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, be more of a playmaker. Get people involved a little bit more if he want to kind of extend his prime out. But it's up to him, man. You know what I'm saying? Like he has to make that decision on he's gonna be a better player or not. I remember, I
So this,
remember, I remember you and just as a quick aside, what were you guys discussing when BGS was talking about KD? Was he saying that KD was not going to be the same, or what was the situation y'all was discussing? I forgot.
oh shit, I don't remember.
I think it was about KD. What do you think about the whole KD thing? Do you think he's back, or you think he's just kind of like,
Well, I mean, he was one toenail from leading the team to the championship last year, the year before last.
ah, man, that's some skip shit.
His line was right on the.
I don't know about
It
that.
was. What are you talking about? You didn't watch the game? What are you talking about?
I mean, I saw the game, man, but I mean,
Oh,
come on, man,
okay.
you can't be just
If he
saying that.
if he steps back, he hits the 3-pointer
Come
game
on,
over, didn't
no,
it?
come on, no, man. It's the game was not over. It wasn't like I don't even. Was that a last second shot?
Yes. Game. It was game. He blew it. He blew it.
Was that a series ender? Did they go
That was
7 games?
game, son. 7 games. Yeah. He did it by himself. It was 1-on-5.
I got it. Yeah, I mean, if you're right, you could be right about that. I mean, like I said, I mean,
Yeah. It was no. He had no help. He did kind of what LeBron did years ago with the nobodies. You know what they call them, the Jags. Yeah. And if he would have stepped back, that was it. It was a wrap. They in the championship.
Hmm.
So I mean, yeah, he seems to be fine. I mean, he's he's nicked up now. So same with we'll see with Clay too. Well, Clay hold up. From three injuries, 3 leg injuries.
Yeah, Clay's hurt, man. Clay's been hurt. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, he's been hurt the last 3 or 4 years, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, he was down he didn't play basketball for 2 years straight. But I think
Yeah.
with the medical technology, you know, you're able to do some things. You're able to almost be yourself or be yourself. Really, not saying you won't get injured again, but KD is playing at the same level when he came back. He didn't drop off points, nothing. points, minutes, nothing. So I don't think only issue that he has is his issues are. He has two issues. One is just got traded, and one only plays after the only one plays after the uh only plays half the games. What's his name? The flat earther dude.
That's your boy, Kyrie, man.
Yeah, that's my guy. So those are his injuries. That's all his injuries is those two dudes.
I bet you that, bro. I bet you listen to the Black Manosphere like a motherfucker too. Kyrie, he's one of those off the chain brothers, man. Kyrie,
love Kyrie.
Kyrie a trip, man.
He a free thinker.
Is that what we call it? Okay. I mean, yeah,
he's a free thinker.
Kyrie's cool, man. I mean, Kyrie's cool. I
don't like Kyrie?
Nah, I got a little love for Kyrie, man. Kyrie remind me like my little cousin or some shit, man.
Yeah, but I thought you want people to not follow corporate. I mean, everybody you see on TV work for corporations, right?
Yeah, I ain't talking about that.
He's trying to be who he wants to be under a corporate structure, which is almost impossible, by the way. So I thought you would love him. He should be your favorite player. Shit, the rest of these guys are suckers. They already got vaccines. He was like, I ain't getting no vaccine. Good luck with that.
But see, I'm at the age where the delusion just doesn't work on me. It used to work like to the point where I used to see the fight the power and be like, okay, yeah, man, I'm here with you, brother. We're gonna go up against the system.
I ain't saying all. Ain't nobody talking about
Kyrie. That's Kyrie, baby. That's Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, but he living his personal, individual life though. So he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it though. I don't understand. You taking it to a whole nother level. Ain't nobody taking those systems. The Empire ain't going nowhere off of somebody not playing basketball, bro.
That ain't what Kyrie said. And then if you listen to some
cares what he says.
Hold on. Let me we about to go
cares about that part.
We about to go off the rails. So let me just say this.
Let's go off the rails.
Let me say this, man. before I do the Mel Gibson and Lethal
before you do that. Before you do that. Karl Anthony Towns beat Trae Young, Fred VanVleet, Patty Mills.
Fred didn't win that? Damn.
CJ McCollum, of course. I ain't worried about Zach LaVine. They thought Luke Kennard, the white boy, was going to do something, but he froze. And Desmond Bain, I don't know him, from Memphis.
Desmond, I don't know who that is either.
Yeah, I don't know Desmond.
Memphis got a squad though.
Memphis got a squad. The Bulls got a squad. Cleveland got a squad.
Cleveland got, LeBron thinking about going back home and shit. Playing.
All right, LeBron should give his ass in Cleveland.
Nah, but man, you broke my chain. What were we talking about? Was it Kyrie?
Kyrie free thinking.
But it was something.
I just wanted to tell you what that was before I forgot. That's all.
So what I was about to say was that you have a lot of people, right? That will look at Kyrie and be like, yeah, man, Kyrie, man. So you will have certain people that will say things that they know that they can't do, right? But they say it anyway because it makes them feel good. So you just say it.
Say that one more time.
You have people, right, that are in positions or have a platform, have some kind of following, or have people that look up to them, whatever the case, right? They will say something that they know that they technically are not going to be able to manifest or do. But it sounds good and it makes everybody feel good and they do it anyway. And then they end up capitulating at the end of the day anyway.
What's wrong with that though?
Ain't nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, I mean, come on, man. It's nothing
what's
wrong. I'm not
wrong
going
to
get into it.
What's wrong with causing a little bit of a disruption at your job? He has a job. He's caused a little disruption. That's all it is, man.
Get into it.
I mean, that's all he's really doing is causing some disruption. He's doing the I always think about the dude saying, "Who's going with me?" And nobody went with him. Remember from Tom Cruise.
Earth, Wind & Fire is one of my old. Hold on, but Earth, Wind & Fire is one of my old school. I love Earth, Wind & Fire, man. My mom, my uncle, all of them used to play that joint back in the day. I mean, literally, like Earth, Wind and Fire is my old school go-to band from the 70s, man. And fantasy, right? In the sky, and it's in the fantasy. All this stuff, man. To me, it's just people just say stuff, man, and they want to make it real, and it's not the truth. It's not reality, man. That's But I get it though. I get it. It makes you feel good, and it's a way of coping. Then you gotta do what you gotta do. You know what I mean? Do what you do, man.
But that's all it is, though. Why would you? Who you are as a person? You wouldn't assume there was more than that anyway, regardless of what they say. You already know the truth.
Not me.
Yeah.
I mean,
so if he wants to agitate his workplace, I'm all for that. Why would you not want to be for that?
Okay, so let me ask you.
Would you prefer? First, before you said it, would you prefer us in the shacks back in the South picking cotton? I mean, let me know what it's the same thing. Would that be more preferable for you? I don't understand what you're talking about.
Since you want to carry it down the rabbit hole and you want to do this online, you want everybody to be in our business. Let's go ahead and go there. Let's do it.
No, I don't.
So let me ask you.
You're about to do it. I'm talking about Kyrie Irving.
So let me ask you a question though. So Dr. Gregory Carr and Dr. Jared Bell, right? Those two conscious communities.
Yeah.
Shout out to them, and if they actually hear us, this is not against anybody, but they had an interesting discussion, and it's a discussion that we had even on this channel before, where they were saying that is it viable for Black people to vote? In fact, let me do my due diligence, because I think that I don't want to misquote, and I'm not going to pull up the video and play it, but I'm not going to misquote Dr. Jared Bell or and both of these guys I look up to, by the way. But I'm not gonna disrespect either one of them. But Dr. Jared Bell was, of course, railing against I guess in his eyes, seeing that Dr. Carr was kind of like carrying a flag for the Democratic Party, right?
Okay.
And Derek Carr, I mean, Dr. Carr was kind of having like a pragmatic view about voting, like what else are we going to do? What, vote for the Republican Party, which is a white how he goes in on the white nationalist party. He gives all the history, blah blah blah. Dr. Jared Bell don't disagree with that, but he thought that withholding the vote or being able to kind of educate the politics on the vote in the more political realm was more substantial than voting just Democrat or voting whatever Republican or whatever the case may be. Right. I don't know where he stands with that. He didn't really, it's kind of weird in this weird malaise where people don't really kind of stand on one side or the other. They just kind of like anti-voting, stance where they just don't believe in the process at all. And Dr. Carr was bringing up like how the judges were being appointed and things of that nature. He's like, what would you want us to do? Like, what is the more doable thing? In the meantime, what do we do? So I thought that was very interesting. What's your thoughts on that? Like, do you think, because I know how me and you have discussions about this all the time about voting and whether that's going to make a difference at the end of the day. Because we have very pragmatic. So I want to keep it within the lines, but I want to see.
But of course, it makes a difference, though. I mean, what are we talking about? Yeah, I mean, of course. I just don't know. Like you said, it all depends on. You know what I mean, right? It just depends on what people are talking about. I mean, that voting can get things done, obviously. So I mean, I don't. We have evidence of that every day. You know what I mean? But I think it might get conflated in certain conversations, I guess, in certain circles. But Dr. Carr and them could be doing other things too, personal things, not personal things, but in their little world they live in. As far as people saying maybe we should stop supporting the Democrats and stop supporting whoever and do something totally different and totally out the box for sure.
So the show,
yes, but that just depends. It just depends on what you're really trying to. What can you actually do as a person if you make a statement like that, though? If he comes on and tells Dr. Carr, I got 5 million Black people to sign a petition and say that they're going to support X, Y, and Z, or not do anything. He can, you know what I mean? He can pull that kind of weight as far as, maybe tell people don't vote or do something totally different. But you got to be able to. I think you got to be able to show that though. Talking, I think is kind of cheap when it comes to stuff like that. Because
what are the realistic options though? I mean, think about if a black person is frustrated with both parties.
I mean, but to do what though? To do what? Which black person?
That's what Doctor. I wish I. You know what? Let me. You
don't gotta play it. I understand what you. I listen to them all the time. I got you.
No, but I want the audience to see the conversation, because the conversation is something that is done with two intellectuals, two doctorate, two pro-black individuals, like clearly in the pro-black community, but they have a fundamental disagreement about how to proceed. But it's not. It's I don't think they. I don't think they. It's not that contentious though. It's not. I don't think
they. They probably really don't though.
What do you mean? They don't what?
I think they're probably in alignment, but these guys are old. They've been around a long time, so I mean,
right.
You can have different opinions in the moment depending on what you're trying to accomplish in that particular argument. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if it. I don't know if I don't think Dr. Kyle. I don't think really actually agrees with that in the bigger picture.
No, he don't.
But if you're trying to say for example, right, in a particular county, you need to get somebody about that county, that particular judge, that particular DA, that particular whatever. You just trying to get them up out of there, yo. We have enough people. We can get them out of here. Get somebody else in there. Maybe instead of getting 5 years, you get 3 years. It's little thing. It could be little thing. It just depends on what people are really talking about. You know what I mean? When Barack was president, you can't tell me that maybe it's inspired people, made them feel better, give them a sense of something. Things benefit people in all types of ways. But when you start talking about dealing with an empire, I think that's foolish. In my opinion, it's foolish. It's not that big of a deal. It's just what are you really talking? No. I'm just making a. Why not? It's not one.
We can ramp up. No, that's those are facts, man. But it's just like the conversations tend to kind of like people feel like it's doom and gloom when you scale up that high.
I don't care though.
I know you.
Get off the line. Go somewhere else. I mean, what are you talking about? These people don't move me. What are you talking about? Should you know who I am?
I have a clear. I know exactly who you are, sir.
Mother.
But check this out though. This is what I'm trying to say though. On a more of a conversation where they want to have it, on the surface conversation when it comes down to voting.
Yeah, I got you.
If you're gonna vote, then vote with your
eyes should vote.
Open. But just
you should vote. You should participate. You pay taxes. You follow the rules. You stop at stop signs. You stop at yellow, red lights. You go. What are you talking about? You want new restaurants in your neighborhood, don't you? Don't you want? I mean, I don't know. What are we talking about here?
You hear?
Do you want your taxes lowered? You want to pay less in gas? I mean, I don't know.
And like my homie tells me that works at the Pentagon, it can always be worse. It can always be
That's a fact.
That motherfucker always tell me that, like.
But I think what happens.
Worse, man.
But I think what happens is I think that we get confused. Not get confused. But like you said, you have to frame it initially and say, okay,
frame it.
This is what we're not talking about. We're not talking about empire. We're not talking about imperialism.
We're not talking about solving black people's problems either. No, we're not talking about that.
And we're not talking about solving the international problem with people of color.
Right. You got to be real specific.
So what we're actually talking about is you live in zip code 21347.
Right. That's
there is a sheriff that we need to get rid of.
Got to get his ass up out the paint. You hear me? He got the
matter of fact. We don't want this prison in our county. We don't want. It could be a list. It's a litany of things that participating, not even just voting, honestly, but participating, becoming an official, getting involved, know what's going on in your community. There's benefits to that just in general. Now, I will say this though. I'm going to caveat this though. Depends on what you do for a living, I think, as well. Right? If you're busy driving trucks, I don't know if you have time to do all that stuff, right?
Come on,
If you're busy, if you're working in a
come
certain,
on,
if you're moving a certain way in culture, then that's a different conversation, right? You know what I'm
come
saying?
on,
So
man.
it's more layers to it, right? But I think if you're a 9 to 5 person who sort of lives a casual life, I think that
Just let's just say this:
participating matters a little bit
if
more.
it
But if you're
don't
living a
matter to
certain kind
you,
of life,
if it
you
don't
know,
matter to you, then it don't matter to you. I just
yeah,
put it like
yeah,
that. Like it
yeah,
don't matter to you, then it don't matter to you. But what we talking
yeah.
about though? Because like
So
I
guess
said,
what? If you don't
your
have issues with
personal decision is
anything,
your personal decision.
but the
That's what I'm
thing is
saying. If
this
you ain't
though,
tied
if
down
you
to
don't
nothing,
have issues,
you're not down
right?
to it.
If you don't have issues, because I think what about 60% of people vote at the national level, 55, 50, whatever it is, somewhere in that range, 55, 60. So I mean, like you said, everybody's not voting anyway. A lot of folks can't vote because they got felonies and other things in certain states, and I mean, it's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And then when you get down to local stuff, a lot of times it's maybe half the community that supports it, maybe 30%, depending on where you live at and what state and what part of the country. You know what I'm saying? So just like you said, it just depends. But voting, I would argue with you, is probably more about, like you just said, solving some problems, but more of just your standard problems though. Nothing
Right.
out of the scope of, like,
Mm-mm,
again, empire, where you're talking about we should all be together and we can all do,
mm-mm.
that.
Yeah,
Because like you
that's
said, what's going, like for
it.
example, Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter as an example. You could take a movement like that as a Democrat, co-opt it, right? And then use it to get people who you want in office.
True.
So a lot of times movements get exploited by Republicans and Democrats because they're
That
the
was
two
done
major
by the
parties
way.
that maintain all the power, right?
That
So
was done by the
that's
way
where it
too.
gets, yeah, that's where it gets a little crazy, because me and you can start a grassroots movement to say in poverty. It's going to get co-opted because of how the power dynamics are in the country, right? It's going to get co-opted. It's going to
Of
get spent.
course.
It's going to put pressure on certain groups of people. Other folks are going to take the other side of that. You know what I'm saying? It becomes a whole situation at that point. So
They
it
got
does get messy.
they got one sister, man, that's a junior congresswoman right now out of the Ferguson area
Yeah, yeah,
region that
yeah,
just decided to just run, and
yeah,
she's directly out of the Ferguson. She was directly from
yeah.
the protest,
Trayvon Martin's mother.
straight out the protest. Well, yes, her too, but I'm saying there's another woman that just got elected um recently, just maybe like I want to say 2 years ago. Yeah, I forget her name though, but she's like, you know, average sister, you know what I'm saying? From the
Hmm.
hood or whatever, from the neighborhood, got had a regular nursing degree, regular job, came
Yeah.
and ran and won. So she's representing,
Hmm.
that side of Missouri now. So that's what I mean. You can get
Yeah.
people in play
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
represent what you're talking about. Now, once they get into the machine is the machine. That people
Yeah,
got to understand.
you
Too
see
many
how they
different
grind. You
things
see
where
how
they
they
work.
grind up AOC in them, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's
Gave them a
a
name, call them the, what do they call them three? The
yeah.
something and others, and I'm like, y'all make these people the most famous people in the world. They don't have no power. They local. They have a local area in the state, in the city. You know,
These are not senators. These are not
and
governors. These
right,
are
and they
not.
have no political power in the House of Representatives. They
Yeah.
are waiting on Nancy tells them where to go, what to do, when to use the
Exactly.
bathroom, when to do this, when to do that.
Sit
And when they
sit in
ask
the
for
back,
things, nah, I'm
sit in the
good. She's
back
like,
of
nah,
the
I'm good.
sit in the back of the committee and watch for about 4 or 5 years, and then we can talk. I mean, you got
Or
people that's
five.
been in, but
You're more like 20,
you got people that's been that's been in the house what 50 years,
50
60 years.
years. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not
I
moving them
mean,
off though.
people are
You're not moving
lifeless,
them, yeah.
man. They die in the house, and
Yeah.
before you can move up the chain, it's a progression. You know what I mean?
But I
So
think that also makes people like you said, if we're not raised to understand government, like if it's not part of our culture, then it can be very confusing, I think, and very frustrating because
right.
you think about it, right? Like I see Mitch McConnell, right? I'm like, yeah, y'all can keep voting for this man in Kentucky, but I can't do anything about it. He can't move to Kentucky and vote him out, right? It's just what it is.
It's just
So
what it
so you got to take him, right? And you can just go down the list. So it's almost like I was telling somebody about like Joe Rogan and the racist stuff that he was saying, right? I was like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, really, because I think about things like we just said. I'm like, so what do you think all the congressmen and senators, what do you think they talk about? Really? With the legacies that they have 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, even your president. Who did he used to hang out with? Bull Connor and them back in the day?
Strom Thurmond
Strom Thurmond, whoever? Yeah. I mean,
was his mentor.
Yeah, and he rolled with the Dixiecrats and stuff. What do you think they was
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
come
yeah.
on, it's ridiculous. What are you talking? And how many black folks voted for him? 35 million. Whatever I mean, come on, what are we talking about? Ridiculous. You voted for a guy who runs your country, quote unquote,
They
and he
digged
said
up,
the
they
word.
digged up
He
votes from
said
the
the hard R.
grave.
He said the hard R from when he was probably 3 or 4 years old. It been saying it his whole life.
Yeah, he's been on
Come
that.
on, man, stop it.
There's
It's
no doubt
ridiculous,
about it. No doubt
right?
about it.
My point is saying that what does that mean? That means that what? So let's agree. We compromise. So these weird emotional responses
That's
that we
all
be
I'm
having
saying.
and stuff makes no sense.
Because
We're
I can
compromising
argue the
continuously.
point. I can argue the point from being compromised, but you're not going to argue the point like you got some kind of position wherever you're sitting at, and then talking about you maneuvering from a point of power from nowhere. You're just talking. So if you're telling me that we're both compromised, here's where we're going to basically talk about. If we're both in compromising positions, let's talk about how to maneuver power that way. That's an honest conversation when you're dealing with politics.
Yeah,
But
because you know what you can
if
get
we're
and
not
can't
talking
get.
from that, yeah, we're not talking from that standpoint, then I
No.
can't rock with you, because at the end of the day, you're
Well,
playing games
remember,
with me. You know what I'm saying? Because
African Americans,
you're
I
telling me
think,
not to do anything. I might as well don't even vote, because I mean I could do that
well, I
too.
don't know about that, but
Well, I'm
African
saying if
Americans,
that's what you choose to do is what I'm saying.
I don't know if African Americans or Americans in general are emotional people as far as like this the average person or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if we're really being taught to be really like pragmatic and technical about things. Like we're more about I don't like you or I do like you. You know what I mean? We don't, it's hard to. I don't know if it's hard to get out of that, but I think we're just not technical. In it's more emotions with everything.
No,
It's
it's
how
about
it's how
it's about
everybody
it's about
feels and things of that nature.
oh
Like
yeah, man.
think about it. Obama got elected off of, in my opinion, I could be wrong,
Pure
off their pure, utter, sheer emotions.
mm-hmm.
Not one technical thing. In my eye, and like I said, I could be wrong, but I don't think one thing technical. Pure emotion. The look was right, the vibe was right, the wife was right, the kids were right, the neighborhood, the Chicago, all of it hit. I mean, it was like a trifecta of event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't, but I think it's all emotion though. Was it technical? It couldn't have been technical because he wasn't held to anything. He could just do whatever he wanted to do. Pure emotion, hope. What was it? What was his campaign slogan? Hope and change, something like that. But then you don't know who you don't know who you don't understand that Merrill Lynch gave him 100 million and Soros gave him 100 million and Wells Fargo gave him 100 million and Exxon gave him 50 million or whatever the numbers are, right? You don't
Yeah,
understand that. You don't
I'm trying.
understand the
Yeah,
people
I'm
that
just trying to
put
understand
$1 billion in his bank account
right. What
because
did he
you didn't
want?
do it. Selling sweet potato pies in church didn't do it. It was Exxon Mobil oil, the oil companies is what
but I
banked
see.
him $500 million.
See, here's the problem. I mean, if you know that,
This is
and
big boy. This is big boy stuff right here.
I hear people talk about it all the time. Money is going to be the mover. So why is it so interesting to you when you see somebody especially somebody that's in your classification of being black? You know what that means. No matter what part of the so-called culture you come from with that, you have an understanding of the limitation to a degree.
Well, not
So
only
if
that,
you
poor
have an
people in
understanding,
America do not believe in themselves. You hear me?
Yeah. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Poor people in America don't believe in themselves. That's all. They don't believe in themselves. The poorest people don't believe in themselves. They don't think they are capable of doing anything at those levels. Because I saw Trump get elected, and it was confusing just because I'm like, well, I would prefer to vote for Joe the plumber. Remember him?
I remember Joe the plumber. Yeah, I remember Joe the plumber. Yeah, he was a very useful tool. Very useful tool during that election.
But they trusted Trump.
Yeah, but
for a reason.
You know what? Let me do you think we can play a little bit of that video? I think it would be fair use. It's on YouTube. It's not anything that's
but whose channel is it on?
It's on
about
Black
the YouTube.
It's on Black Power.
It's on Black Star. Oh no, man! Black people be acting funny with their videos. So good luck. You can go ahead and play it though. See what happens.
I want to play it because I think it's needed to show people the differences of how somebody can view this thing as far as what voting means and how they view the power dynamic. And I think we can kind of piggyback off some of that, because I don't want to misconstrue some of their words, because they both made some good points and some good interesting points about the voting apparatus here in this country and what people should or shouldn't do. And I don't believe telling anybody what they should or shouldn't do. I mean, I think that it's all an individual decision at the end of the day. You make the decision on what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't think
Period.
it's that heavy. Yeah,
Yeah, to
I don't
me.
think it's that heavy. You do whatever. They're those
Right.
two, the two people you're speaking of don't speak for nobody but themselves, though. So the voting blocks get to choose to do whatever they want to do, and the people who don't, I mean, there's no punishment for any of it. You know what I'm saying? But I think if you're trying to project out, you want people to take something like voting more seriously. And it's not really voting that you want to take serious. I think you just want to take where you are serious, more serious. Not just the voting part, but just trying to understand the place that you live in and try to have those type of conversations so you can be. I think it helps you be better, be more in reality and less fantasy stuff. Because remember, we're many of us, unless you're raised very hard, a lot of us were raised,
Fair use. Fair
you know,
use. I want fair
believe
use. I'm claiming
believing in a
fair
whole
use,
right,
baby. Fair
believing in a whole
use.
lot of things.
This is for
So
educational purposes. Dr. Jared Ball. I said Bell. I'm sorry about that. Dr.
yeah,
Jared
ball,
Ball.
yeah, ball, yeah,
Please, Dr. Ball. Dr. Carr, please let us more unfortunate Negroes in the DC area.
yeah.
Please
But it may
let's
not
look
be
at your
it's the guys who
video.
loading them videos up. You can play it though.
Well,
See what happens.
I'm making a suggestion that this is going to be used for educational purposes, because to the layman, I think this is an educational thing that where they can have somebody kind of review their video outside of them. That's because I put it like this: I am more of a moderate pro-black in the sense of
What
I'm
does that
not.
even mean?
Well, I'm trying to put it in
Just
voting
made that up,
terms,
didn't you?
man, for people to understand. Yeah, I did, because I'm not all
I'm
the
a
way to
moderate
the
pro black.
I'm not all the way to the stars and quasars, and we was the moon and the stars and the universe, and then we came here and we manifested into black people, and voila, I'm not on that level, no. And then I'm not here talking about white Christmas and totally go all the way to that particular point where I'm just like the good Negro. I don't believe in that either. I believe that there is a center to be had as far as African thought and being practical about where we at as a people, the reality that we find ourselves in, and as a people, I mean the forced classification that we know as black. Like, I don't have any kind of nostalgic um thought pattern on it, thinking that black people, the people that would have been deemed black right now 1,000 years ago, think of it the way we do. And I think sometimes we romanticize that and we make it into something that it shouldn't be. And that's why I don't get into that. And I think that a lot of times, especially I think with our particular the way we look at things, I think it's kind of hard, because even when we listen to Gus, we listen to um a lot of the pro blacks, the so-called conscious community, or whatever you want to call it, the hard conscious community, blue pill, red pill, remember the House of Consciousness when they used to rock back in the day. And you know uh me and you used to have discussions about it all the time, like, yo, did you hear what this brother said? Like, come on, man, like, what is this? And it's just like, it's a money thing. It became church to a lot of people, and hey, I get that. I know people like to feel good, and I think this is a little bit some of that too. You're seeing a discussion where the ideas about what the community is and what people should think in the community are converging with the reality is on the ground. And I think that Dr. Carr, being around other people that are kind of like in that political space, like a Roland Martin, because Roland Martin is all about rocking and rolling for the Democratic Party, regardless. Like, he's like, he ain't gonna waste his time so-called talking to the so-called conscious Negroes. He think it's just nonsense. But I'm not gonna just filter it out like that. I'm more probably in line with Dr. Ball and Dr. Carr, maybe in between those two. But I think they had an interesting discussion. I think that it's very interesting to see exactly how they fall down on this. So let's play this clip. Tell me if you can hear it. You ready to rock and roll? You can you hear me? Did you fall off?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right,
It's ready.
All right, cool.
Are who have made
fair use,
serious strides,
fair
and
use,
dedicated their life to our people, and they continue to do so. And you know, oftentimes we have different philosophies and ideologies and all of that. And what we wanted to do tonight was to bring some of these strong ideas to the table and kind of toss them back and forth and see what it looks like to the people and what we can utilize. So expect to have a nice organic and fresh combo tonight. I don't know why I'm stuttering so much. I ain't gonna front. I'm nervous. I'm excited myself. So bear with me. But anyway, our first guest, Dr. Greg E. Carr. He's a PhD and an associate professor of Africana Studies and the chair of Department of Afro-American Studies over at Howard University. And he's an associate professor, amongst other things. And I think I just repeated that, but I'm going to bring him on now, and he's going to give you a better bio than me because I'm jacking it up. What's happening, Dr. Carr? How you feeling?
What's up, African? You say, Brother Mukasa, happy birthday, Mukasa. You know, that's what he would say.
You already
Hello,
know.
African.
Hey, I left him a message today, and he called me back like, "What's going on, African?" I said, "Man," you I'm just giving you the born date salute. I said, "You celebrate the same day as my mother." She said, "Is she old as me?" I said, "Well, she's 71." She said, "Oh, she's a little girl to me then."
No question, man. Yes, indeed, man. Happy born day to your mom, as we always did when I call home and tell mom and dad say, "Man, thanks for getting together."
Without a doubt.
And of course, Brother Ahmed and Baba Askia, of course, both those Babas, man. We got some powerful warriors now on the other side. They get to add to the team, so
you better believe it. And we still calling on them, trying to work on them even when they're gone. But
no
you know how we do.
No question. We got to at least get them over their 40 day before we ask them for anything, though. So at least at this point, we gonna get them through the.
Please.
Yeah,
yes.
So, yeah, I'm glad here, man. And I'll say this when our brother Dr. Ball gets on, Jerry gets on. Happy year anniversary. I know we passed the first year of the collective forming.
Yes,
the true Avengers, Black Power Media. So and yeah, man. No, I would say one thing. I'm fortunately no longer the chair of the African Studies Department at Howard. I've been promoted back to the faculty. I ain't got to worry about that administrative stuff.
And putting it down for many years himself. Dr. Jared Ball is a professor of communication and Africana Studies at Morgan State University in Baltimore. And he's author of Myth of Propaganda of Black Buying Power, amongst other things. And he's co-host of I Mix What I Like and co-founder of Black Power Media, which is the platform we're on right now. We want to welcome this brother that I see so many times a week, Dr. Jared Ball. What's happening, brother?
And it's a pleasure to be seen by you so often.
Just real quick. I kind of want to say this though. I really do. Don't adjust your TV. Jared Ball is a person that's classified as Black. Don't he remind you of Sean King though? Is it Sean King? Is that Talcum X?
Yeah.
So this is like Talcum X older brother, but yeah, it's very interesting, man, when you get into discussions where you're talking about blackness and the most militant one is the lightest person in the room. So just keep that in mind, by the way. Our fourth classification brethren, Jared Ball. Sean King's older brother. I couldn't help it. When I look at his face, man, I'm like, God damn, he's light-skinned Negro, man. Anyway, let me not get too anti-black. Okay, let's get back on frame. All right. You ready? Because they're gonna get into it very, very quickly here. He's gonna get into
I'm still waiting. Yep.
On. Okay, cool.
And happy birthday to your mother and to Brother Mukasa, and good to see you, Dr. Carr. Thanks again for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Pleasure.
And thanks to everybody else. And by the way, speaking of, I think this is a good time to go ahead and say it. I just got an email saying that Paul Grave wants to do a second edition of the book, the Buying Power book. So we're gonna do something on that. Excellent. And make some updates and some improvements, etc. So
excellent. And let me say the onset, brother. I never, man, if I ever get something wrong in promoting your work, man, let me apologize in public for that. I would never want to do that. So, but I'm glad to hear there's a second edition of the work coming out. So,
right on.
No, I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Cool. So for the good people that's checking us out, again, we thank you because you are the most important folks in the building today. Because without you, we'll just be having a convo amongst three knuckleheads, and no telling what happened. We'll probably end up going out for drinks or something. But anyway, yeah. So I want to just let folks know what's going on. The title of this particular piece is "Does Electoral Politics or Does Voting Matter?" Excuse me. And it's going to go beyond that, but we wanted to start with that particular piece, and we'll pose questions to each particular guest, and then we'll take it from there. So we have a good time. You brothers ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're gonna get it started like right about now with the title, "Does Voting Matter?" And we'll start with Dr. Carr since he's visiting. Yes.
Okay. Well, the short answer is yes. I guess the little bit more extended answer would be depending on context. For me, it's a question of tactics and strategy and tools. Voting isn't a destination. It isn't a holy grail. It isn't a be all or end all. It's a tool. And I think probably, and Jerry, help me with this. It might be that we're in a space here to have this conversation in part because of this last federal election cycle for the presidency. I certainly advocated voting for the Biden ticket, and of course, I wasn't alone. I mean, I was watching y'all have a conversation with Cornel West, and Adolph Reed is everywhere. It's like, and we'll just count Angela Davis for now. I mean, by the way, I enjoyed that conversation that Joy James had on the platform. I think it's very, very. But I think she's busy with my friends Kimberly Crenshaw and Nicole Hannah-Jones, and them talking about Black love is American love. So that's the thing. But in terms of voting for me, certainly not in terms of a single issue. When you start talking about electoral politics in this current two-party system, I would say that there's a floating signifier at play at this point. I often refer to the so-called Republican Party as the white nationalist party, but I think of white nationalism in a party formation almost like any other party that isn't one of the two major parties and political parties in this country. In other words, I'm not thinking of party as an organized formation that runs for office, but rather as a kind of ideological posture, organized ideological posture that influences policymaking. And for many years, as we know, the so-called Democratic Party was the white nationalist party. And then, of course, it began to steadily erode after the 30s, and by the 60s, certainly after the Voting Rights Act, the white nationalist kind of movement in electoral politics, that's a floating signifier. It floated to the Republican Party steadily over years, and that's where it is now. So finally, in terms of this past election, and again, I'll issue an apology at the onset. Our brother Todd Burrows, I know there was a conversation about this leading up to the election, and Todd had reached out and invited me to write a paper, and I simply didn't get it together in time. And I asked him, well, when is it coming up? And by then he said, well, talk to Kwasi Kanadu, and we just got our wires crossed because I was very much looking forward to having that conversation. Maybe we'll have some of it tonight as it relates to my reason specifically advocating for voting in that election. Doesn't mean I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. I wonder if Brother Omawali is watching tonight. Africa, he had my eyes blacked out on posters and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, bro, you think I'm like, damn, I can't see. Oh, I'm a shield for the Democrats now. So my primary issue was the federal judiciary, and we can talk much more about what that means. But yeah, I'll stop for now, and then maybe we can just have some conversation. But the short answer is yes, and a little bit longer answer is, and depends on the context how you use that tool in the box. I don't think we should leave any tool when we're trying to engage in struggle.
Right on. Okay,
Yeah.
Dr. Paul.
So yeah, no. So again, so on that point, I agree that voting is or can be important as a tool, but I just don't think it is as we do it. It's not. We're not using it properly. So I just want to be clear. So my points are basically these. And this is something I was trying to address with you, Dr. Carr, at the time of that election, during the last election, that in response primarily to an exchange you were having on Twitter. That's where it started for me. So which sort of devolved into hostility and into just shade, and it was just a standard social media exchange that was, I thought, useless. So the point I was trying to make, the points I'm trying to make are that, like, so like the Yale Law School professor Samuel Moyne wrote a little while ago, I thought it was a compelling argument for why the Supreme Court, and I think by extension the federal benches, have historically not done much at all and have been given undue credit for what little has been done, specifically around Brown v. Board, in advancing the rights of any so-called oppressed minority, Black people, LGBTQ, and others. And that for the most part, what actually enforced Brown v. Board was Congress. And part of Moyne's point was that not only does the Supreme Court not do much, not only does the federal bench not do much to help these oppressed communities, but by ceding all of this power over to judges appointed, some for life, society gives over its claim to democracy, that we give over the right to legislate and rule ourselves by just passing something over to a tiny group of unassailable and a permanent judiciary. So then the other thing is that that from the perspective of radical movements, voting has never been seen as a central feature by any of the ones that I think we will hold up dearly. Some have engaged electoral politics, but voting was never the primary focus for bringing about real change in the society, not for any of the luminaries we point to or the organizations out of which they come. And then lastly, what my primary issue was not necessarily to debate with you these specifics, but more to have you teach us and make an actual argument, as opposed to the devolved argument you had on social media, or as I showed on my show recently when you were on Roland Martin, and you just basically said, you actually said to people who say if you say don't vote, if voting isn't important, then you should shut up. Mm-hmm. And my response is that as a master teacher, which you are, and any of us who have known you and know you at all, and I've known you for years, we know you're a master teacher. So when you, and I just wrote this down here, when you chastise righteously angry Black people by telling them to shut up, and by denying them your expertise on these histories and movements of other more powerful and meaningful ways to impose change, you sound too much like your Roland Martin colleague, Michael Cord, who called Black people refusing to vote for Biden in the last election traitors, or like Biden himself, who had the audacity to suggest that a refusal to vote for him meant that you were not Black at all. So it seems like you're more angry at those of us on the left than you are of even Black capitalists or the phony elected officials that they support, who do nothing and cause the righteous anger that doesn't generate votes for them going forward. So that was really my major concern, that I feel like your expertise and your genius is not being properly applied in these spaces.
Okay.
Hello. Damn, I was talking too. My bad. Yo, I wanted to kind of like stop right there because I think he kind of gave a long kind of soliloquy about what he was really thinking when he was kind of like stating his point about the voting electorate and how troublesome it was for how Dr. Carr responded to them. So it's kind of like personal, plus the whole idea of anybody that don't actually vote or don't do these type of lock and step, I guess, with the so-called Democratic Party, you kind of get dismissed, the people get dismissive of you because they're like, oh, what are you doing? Just like you don't have a how can I, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not the ideas or your ideology is off that's bad, because see, the thing about him, he's not leaning further right, Dr. Carr is, and he's leaning even more progressive, like the progressive kind, like even more progressive than say like what the so-called Biden is, Biden party, or the Democratic kind of like neo liberal side of the Democratic Party is right now. It's not doing enough as far as being progressive enough. It's not progressive enough for Dr. Ball's liking. Did you hear what he said though? Because I think that's kind of like in your same vein, right? You kind of like don't have no disagreement with what he said, right?
As far as who said, Dr. Carr?
No, Dr. Ball.
No, that's what I was telling you before, that it was going to be personal. And I was right. I didn't know if I was going to be right about that, but it's personal.
Yeah.
This sounds personal. This doesn't sound like anything bigger than that in my mind. I mean, I like what he was saying until he made it personal. Let me say it that way. And, as far as him articulating himself, I understand what he's trying to articulate.
Yeah, it's clear that he looks up to.
But my point is that these people have issues with Roland Martin. They have issues. I mean, anyway, this is stuff I don't. This is the nonsense. So I try to stay away from all this.
I know you do, but
Yeah,
I want to kind of reiterate the point, because it's like a little bit of light. So
it's just internal. It's just a lot of internal black fighting stuff that I try to keep away from. But
that's the whole thing about the forced classification. That's why it's so prevalent. We're going to fight.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that we generally don't agree. We don't agree on how to move forward. We don't.
I don't know about that.
No, what I'm saying is everybody have their own idea how to solve the so-called problems that's ailing black society.
I don't think that's unique. No, that's not unique to us. That's just how it is in the world in general, isn't it?
Yeah, but we don't have
unless you have a supreme leader with a very powerful military.
It's not that's not what I'm
probably closer, and you can or figure out another way to get people to be in lockstep. I mean, we're an open, free country. You can think anything you want to think in this country, really.
Let me say it.
It's a lot. It's going to be more complexity when you're living in a space of this type of place where you can there's no real pressure. You can think all type of things, individually speaking, especially when you're on the internet just talking. You know what I mean? You can feel all type of ways. You know what I'm saying? But I mean,
let me say it this way, because I think that it could be interpreted in a different way, the way I said it.
Sure.
Here's what I'm trying to say. When you have people that are trying to move from a position of so-called neglect, or being so-called wronged or neglected in so-called society, and you are working with another group of people, or it's perceived another group of people that are so-called making all the decisions based off your group that you did not form organically, is what I'm saying. That's where I think a lot of the conflict comes from, because I think it would be okay if you have people, because there's still disagreement even when you within the group, there's going to still be some form of disagreement, right? Everybody's not going to agree lock and load. That don't exist. I know that
disagreement is probably healthy. It's probably healthy.
Yes, it is. But what I'm speaking to in particular is the moving forward part, because I don't have problems with disagreeing with people either. But how can we move forward together?
Moving forward, how can we move forward? Who's taking on the quest that you're talking about, though? What are you talking about?
Not moving forward. What I'm trying to say is, how can we get things done in overall sense?
Again, I don't. That's what I'm saying. It's just, I mean,
it could be anything.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about politically speaking? Are you talking about grassroots? Are you talking about organizing people? What are you talking about exactly?
I'm talking about politics at its core.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about politics at its core, getting things done, getting laws passed, for instance, right? We may have
Okay.
a fundamental disagreement about who's leading the charge on trying to get things changed, but we still agree that they should be changed. We just have a fundamental disagreement about how they should be changed.
But like you said, we're having a lot of different conversations, right? Like they're probably talking about a really serious issue. You could argue, right? Meaning that if you move a certain way, right? I'm not even gonna like you anymore.
Yes,
right.
That's what I mean.
So the question, so I really think it depends on maybe the amount of people that can impact that position. You know what I mean? So if it's a lot of people if it's 5% of the people out here who don't want you to move a certain way when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, and it's only 5%, I don't know if that's a big enough impact to really matter, right? So if people like Roland, and even if Roland has pulled Dr. Carr further under the Democratic umbrella as far as his language, right, and what he should support.
He has.
Again, I don't know their back end conversations because Roland is connected, obviously. So I don't know all the things that they may be getting done now. Because nothing's going to be grandiose here. We're not talking about the big stuff anyway. We're just talking about the regular day-to-day stuff. Roland Martin has a career. He has a life. He has his nieces that he needs to have a legacy for and get them into certain universities and get them certain jobs. I mean, like that's what we're really talking about, right? And Dr. Carr keeps his tenure and graduate goes, and then he passes away and life goes on. Too. So I don't know what we're talking about.
Dr. Ball is a professor too.
So they're just having conversations. My whole point. It's not anything to me. More than anything, it's just that I don't like that. Like Roland Martin, I don't like people saying don't vote. Okay, a lot of people have never liked that for decades, right? That's not a new thing. People have been debating about voting or not voting forever. I would assume.
Yes.
Since it's been invented, like why should we do it or should we do it? It doesn't really matter. Right. Everybody, all levels, immigrants, non-immigrants, black, white.
True.
Hispanic or whatever, Asians. Is it important? Does it really matter? When does it become important to me? Will it ever become important to me? They notice that people who get older vote as they get older. So that's a whole nother thing, of course. But between these two guys, a lot of it they're talking about is all of our, it's the messiness stuff. Because what he really probably trying to say is that you sold out.
Yeah,
sold out. You sold out. Y'all sold out to who? To what? Yeah, what are you really talking about? I mean, come on, man.
Let's continue the conversation.
Just conflict.
I think Dr. Carr is still kind of trying to figure out exactly what the issue is because he's been clear about how he stands because he sees Dr. Carr is sort of like you. He sees the empire more so than anything else. He don't see this, what you're talking about. He think this is just like
I don't care about cultural street conscious stuff. I just don't. I mean, I do. I'm lying. I'm lying. I actually do care to a point. Just to a point though.
For entertainment wise, you do, but you don't really, you know that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. You know that. I like you said before. Makes you feel good.
Well, the thing is that agitation might be required to make things happen, to make you double check yourself, to make you not be comfortable. So I'm going to fight for comfort, right? So Roland Martin is going to fight for comfort. I want to be comfortable. He's fighting for that personally, right?
Yes.
So if I come along and say, I'm against everything you just said. Oh, you stupid. You don't know. Oh, cool. Because you're uncomfortable now. Right. That might make you adjust. Because remember, Roland, we was joking about him with this is something off topic a little bit, but we was joking about how he thinks that he has the best program, right? But when you watch it being put, I watch YouTube stuff, so I'm like, bro, the nobodies have better cameras than this. It looks better than this, right? But he is so caught up in that I'm the best. I've been doing this for 30 years. You can't tell me how to make this better, right? But you're clearly looking at it and you're like, bro, you still on Periscope. Like, what are you talking about, right? But again, he's an older man. He's very connected. He has some level of influence.
Shout out to Uncle Roland, man. Shout out to Uncle Roland.
So I understand him, like my other uncles, by the way, who are stubborn.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is, though.
Old school.
And again, the bigger key is that
with church socks on and shit. You know what I mean?
But the only difference with him is that he's connected, though.
The cookout. He's
in
connected.
politics. He's
And he
connected to
know-
Hillary
he
Clinton, to
knows
Bill
folks, and
Clinton, to
he quick to cut you
Right.
off too. That's how my uncle is.
right.
Real quick to cut you off. You don't know what you're
So,
talking about. Come
so
on
I
now.
would say with Roland Martin, what
Yeah.
he should be doing for Black people in general is giving us the behind the scenes movement of realities that happen, and he doesn't really do that. It's a lot of
But I think that's what
screaming. It's like
Dr. Carr is there to kind of pull them in that direction. It's like a
Dr.
push
Carr is
pull.
too academic, man. He's too academic, bro. I'm talking about the people pressing the flesh. Dr. Carr is not at the White House doing a Trump rally where
No.
Roland Martin is hanging out at. Roland Martin was hanging out with the Black Republicans when Trump came in the White House 2 years ago, hanging out with them in the big hall.
You're
Dr. Carr ain't there. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. It's not, you know that.
Dr. Carr
So the
ain't
question
never
is, Roland Martin should say, hey, this is what's really going on. I think that would help regular folk just have I think most of us kind of get that it's a gang. Everybody's hustling in there. They're trying to get power, trying to get access, obviously.
Don't get it, Paradox. No.
I'm just saying, I'm talking about more street people. But right, the average person is just out here probably don't even have an idea of what we're talking about, right?
No.
But I think that Roland could give insight, just sort of how, because he wants to be too close to the Rachel Maddows and Chris Hayes. He want to be too close to that.
He's career driven.
So
he got
so
instead
of him being more of a podcaster like a Joe Rogan, where he's going to try to give people to tell us how the machine works.
Right.
He gives everyone who comes on his channel trying to get jobs at CNN.
Right.
So they're interviewing on his channel. He loves it too. Oh, I got this person in. I got that person. Like they're doing a business model through his platform. He's not trying to give us access to how politics works in DC. Very problematic. Extremely problematic. And having an academic on. Go ahead.
Because having a conversation with Roland off the program that he does, then having a conversation with him on the program is two totally different things.
Yeah. What he said on TV on Reddit, it's irrelevant, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. So it's almost like off record, on record kind of deal, but he can still go and give a little bit more information because he is connected. Roland is very connected. He knows people's, so he should be a little bit more informative.
This is the other issue though.
I agree.
The politics and the news media, mainstream, the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, New York Post, the Economist, all those papers out there, right? They control narrative, they control realities, right? The problem with being a subculture, I think, and having Roland presenting the news and other things on his show, he's not shaping culture though. So it's also strange in that way, because normally the media, and y'all, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, sort of help develop culture, mindset, direction. But when you look at his channel, it's kind of funny sometimes because you don't have that kind of power. So it's weird in a lot of ways, right? Because like you're talking to me, but I don't know how much impact that you have on the culture. You see what I'm saying? But when you see things get put on CNN, it can move things. You see things get put on MSNBC or Fox or Newsmax or OAN. They're moving things. They're making things happen. Maybe his show does it to some degree. I don't know though. You understand what I'm saying? Because remember, when you think about the white space, right? If you're on the so-called far right, let's say Trumper at this point, they've organized extremely well, right?
Very well.
And guess what they're doing? Think about this. What do you think they're doing? What have they been doing for the last? I really can go back to 2004, but let's just go the last. Let's forget last. Let's go into the future. There are 50 seats that's about to get flipped in the House, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, why do the white people who are flat earthers, far right, anti-government, fake, the government ain't real, satellites not real, why do they care about voting so much? I think that's interesting. Why are they so hell bent on putting their people in office that can carry guns in the White House? Why is it? I mean, why is that so important? Why are the craziest white people who got 1,000,000 guns? Why are they so hell bent on who's the governor? Yeah. I mean, hyper on voting.
Hyper vigilant.
Who's the governor? Who's the county council people? Who's the
That's a good
county
point.
executive? Who's the sheriff? Why are
Yeah.
they so hell bent on that?
Yeah.
And these are the psychopaths.
And they
I mean,
grind.
I'm talking
They
about. I watch
grind. They
people.
grind votes too. They
Bruh.
grind them, man.
I'm
Grind.
listening to guys who are in militia, white militia. I'm listening to guys who are on Parler. Like these guys are on underground things, right? And they're organizing on Facebook groups, all types of stuff be going on, right? And it's interesting because some of them are really extreme though. Like they're out of here. They're out of here extreme.
But see, that's why you can get somebody.
You know,
to
they want to
out.
kill people. They trying to kill people, so they on a whole
So
nother
it doesn't
level.
even matter what party you on. They got so much pressure that they can
Well, they
put on you.
understand.
Like somebody
They
like,
understand a
like
couple of.
Manchin out of West Virginia still ends up being
Right.
like so-called.
He's the president.
Yeah.
Like Charlemagne said, he's the president. He's the president. But like you said, but like you said though, now in their world, I would argue a little bit. I mean, in our world too, but in their world that we're a part of, you could argue that if a bill gets implemented, right? Say if Biden's Build Back Better bill gets implemented and it flushes out, say, $1.5 trillion into various programs, right? Do those programs benefit you? It's more to me the real question, just from a voting perspective, meaning that we voted at whatever rate to get him in office, right? So we helped him get in office, etc. Right? He puts a bill in place to where you get your county gets funding to get a brand new school for you, brand new high school, brand new middle school, brand new elementary school, right? Or whatever, right? New community centers, whatever you want, whatever they give you. Then the argument at that point would be this, right? Well, but they teach us European history in school, so that don't work. Because that's how it gets kind of wonky a little bit, right? Because depending on where you are Black positionally, like you said, if you're like, I guess, hyper conscious, then they can never do anything that's going to make you happy, right? Because everything is going to still be a Western lens or a European lens or a white people lens. And yeah, they did that, but look what they teach in the schools, that type of stuff. So you don't really care. Even on where you're talking about, you're more anti-economics to some degree, right? So you wouldn't care that a teacher's salary goes up 10% and that she can pay for more things to live her life. Right. She can live in a better location. To me, that's valuable. That's value there, right? I understand that that's a real life thing. So you can talk all you want to talk about how you feel about things, but in reality, people have to live their lives. People want to be more comfortable. People want to not be stressed out because maybe kids don't have stuff for school or whatever. So them getting more money or the school getting more money means something to them. So I don't know how and they're Black, right? I don't know how you take that person and set them next to a person who is just anti everything. Forget the economy, forget money, it ain't real, forget government's not real, and let's go back to Africa. I mean, what? Come on, it's like, so you got those two Black people kind of, I guess, going back and forth. But in my mind, the guy on the far conscious guy is a very small percentage of people, though, isn't he? He may be big on the internet, which I don't even know what that really means at this point. But I don't know how relevant he is in real life, though, in day-to-day life. Because don't you think people are having kids still, right?
Yes.
We're still having children, right? So we're participating.
We are participating.
I don't know. We don't have Black hospitals. So, I mean, I don't know what we're doing. What are we talking about here? So, I mean, why wouldn't we want the schools and the hospitals to be the best if we're living here? What do you mean? It's not fake. It's real. It exists.
I know.
That's I mean, don't you want more Black doctors? So when you have kids, maybe you're, I don't know. Depends on how you look at it, right?
That's a good segue. Let's get into Dr. Carr's response to Dr. Ball and his concerns.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised that anybody who watch Black Power Media watches Roland Martin. Y'all watching Roland? So I wasn't talking to you, right?
But that's my point. You're talking to a huge audience of Black people who deserve to learn about these traditions and histories, to be told to shut up if they have a critique.
I think if that, and that's interesting. Yeah. So, I think about something. I was talking with Abdullah Kelamat the other day. We actually taped a conversation for this new thing I'm doing for Roland's network, Black Star Network, on the Black Table. And he just, Abdul just did a book, Dialectics of Liberation, on the African Liberation Support Committee, because he's one of the founders, and he's very good. And one of the things he quotes Lenin, V.I. Lenin, because he goes through that whole thing that BPM is doing an incredible job, particularly of bringing in elders and putting them in intergenerational conversations with folk, saying, here's what we did, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's what we can learn. And Abdul was in the middle of all that stuff, and some of the people fell out and they ain't never talked again. It's crazy, talking to them about that stuff. But at any rate, he writes, and we were talking about the fallout, the stuff with Baraka and the Congress of African People, all the stuff that we know. The splintering of the left, the black left, and how the white left is problematic. And I'll talk about more in a second. One of the things he said, though, was, he said one of the things he's learned, and he's coming up on his 80th birthday, he said, quoting Lenin and what is to be done, I think is what he was referring to. He's like, he said Lenin makes a distinction between a mass organization and an organization of revolutionaries. And his thing is, you can have an organization of revolutionaries, but if you're going to have a mass organization, one of the challenges is to remain in those spaces, those mass spaces. And as we're organizing, and this is stuff we already know, of course, to try to influence people and pull them into the revolutionary formation, because if we quit the field completely, then those mass organizations, to the degree that they exist at all, and we know that's, debatable whether we have even mass organizations now, if at best we'll move toward reformism. Now, and I say that as a broader context for this. I think, with all due respect to Professor Moyne, and it'd be wonderful to have him on. If you can get him in and we can have a conversation, I think that argument is patently absurd. That's exactly what a white man would say. In other words, he's up there at Yale, and he testified before the Presidential Commission. Remember, they had the commission last year on expanding the Supreme Court and this kind of thing. And if you look at his testimony, Moyne, let's just stop and think about that. No influence of the court. I know we don't believe that. We'd be somewhere with our shirts off doing cotton and tobacco if that wasn't the case. Because the simple fact of the matter is that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and I'm not even talking about Brown. I'm talking about, don't worry, we ain't gonna get into the whole thing. And I do appreciate what you said, Jared, and I'm not gonna get too long on this, because like I said, I want to have a conversation. Ralph Bunche, this was in the Journal of Negro Education back in the 30s, maybe 1935 or so. He was still at Howard at the time. He said, the Negro is a special ward of the Supreme Court. We know this is a criminal enterprise. We're in a settler state. We know that. But the question of federalism, which really, if we talked about it in terms of judicial decision-making, statutory interpretation, constitutional interpretation, would take us back to Dred Scott, when Roger Taney basically invents two forms of citizenship in the country and citizenship in whatever state you're born in, and says Dred Scott, because he's black, has no rights that apply from the federal context or the state context. That's why they had to have the 14th Amendment. And of course, the 14th Amendment hasn't really stood the test of time, because the courts have ignored the intent of the framers of the 14th Amendment, Jacob Merritt and all those people. And I guess when Moyne says that the courts have no influence, he knows better than that. The man is on a law school faculty. He's a professor of history at Yale, and he's also a professor of jurisprudence. Now, I teach at a law school, and I'll bristle at that, because I know what happens when people like that make these broad statements to people who don't understand how the law works, and particularly when a white man makes that statement, knowing that the Congress didn't enforce Brown, nobody enforced Brown. And enforcing Brown may not have been the best thing for us. There's a huge debate. That's Derek Bell. He said, what if they in Brown had decided instead of separate but equal is unconstitutional? There was no new law, to quote, like Malcolm used to say, between Plessy and Brown on that. But separate but equal is the law of the land, and it's time to make separate equal. He said that probably would have gone more in the direction of integration than letting these white boys get away with it, because ultimately, I think Moyne's basic point is that the court doesn't have an army. The court doesn't have, that takes you back to Oliver Wendell Holmes, who he quotes in his testimony. This is the voting rights cases, Giles versus Harris back in the 20s. He says, we can decide something, but if you can't enforce it, it does no good. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, lawmakers make laws. You get to be a lawmaker, you got to win the election. And then the judges are supposed to say what the law is, and then it has to be enforced. Our history in this struggle, mass-based struggle, and believe me, and I'll end with this, believe me, I've never said, and will never say, that voting is the primary tool. I've never said that. And when I said on Roland's show, I played that clip, I said people who saying vote no matter should shut up. I wasn't talking about people who take the time to study and have critique. I'm talking to them people that say the Republicans and the Democrats are the same. They are not. Neither one of them in a capitalist formation are caping for us, but they are not the same. The white nationalist party is showing that. I was talking to those people in that context. And yeah, and not only that, if you watch the whole show, not only that show, but any show where this comes up, one of the reasons I stay engaged in that space is to do exactly what Lenin was saying, exactly what Abdul has said he has learned, which is rather than be right on the ideological posture, we got to have conversations with people who exactly what you said, who have to have different kind of conversations and begin to lead them to consciousness. That's how you end up changing policy. As long as we had this two-party system, which we know is eroding, but more is, that's absurd. And we can talk about why it's absurd, even in much more detail than I've said.
So my point isn't to defend Moyne or certainly to defend the system or to argue for some sort of integration electorally or otherwise. My simple point was that Moyne was a Yale law professor making an argument that supports the argument among many in the Black community and elsewhere who are saying we are not getting in return for our vote what we deserve.
Okay.
So my point is that we have.
Help me. How does what Moyne said dovetail with what we say? What Black
because as I said, he lays out the details as to how the Supreme Court and has not the impact of the Supreme Court has not been felt in making the change that people say that attribute to them. So one, to your point, even if I remember correctly, he makes the point about the Brown board and the lack of follow-up on it. And the fact that we, in many cases, as Derek Bell had noted in his own lifetime, we're more segregated today than ever.
That's right.
So again, to his point, the fact that the federal support and the judges' support and the passing of the legislation didn't do anything, and certainly didn't lead to the kinds of change that we want and deserve. So that's one thing. The other thing, so my premise in borrowing from Moyne is that there has been insufficient change, if we can call what has been change, given it is more of a rebranding than anything else. So to your point about even, so even to that point, when you talk about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the 14th Amendment has been used more by corporations than in support of Black people by far. So with people's, corporate personhood and so on. So again, the passage of these amendments has meant more for the established power, white corporate elite, than it has meant for the freedom of Black African people.
Absolutely.
But my point is, this level of discussion is what I think we deserve. And I think that, and I don't recall reading in Lenin, though I'm not an expert, I don't recall him saying you should chastise your audience, tell them to shut up, call them treacherous. And the point is to stay, as you said, to stay engaged and bring an elevated level of consciousness. And then I also think symbolically, when somebody of your stature and caliber chastises publicly, not only those vaguely described as saying we shouldn't vote, but specifically those in spaces like myself and the other brothers that were involved in that debate online, it symbolically carries this weight of, I am going to stand guard against anything radically left of me. And I'm going to demean them and chastise them instead of laying out the context, as you've just done in a certain way so far, to say, okay, yes, we may disagree, but I can at least recognize the political traditions and lineages that you all are referring to and out of which you are coming, and there's a logic to it. Now, let me explain why in this time, I don't think it is of value. That I think would be much more, much more of value to all of us than that kind of hostile stance that conservatives take against us all the time.
Can I ask you, where do you see us disagreeing so far? Because everything you said so far, I agree with.
Again, that was my point. The only thing I said where we disagree is in your public castigation of those who would argue against voting for Democratic Party. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it needs, because when you come with that level of causticity and hostility, it doesn't bring us anywhere.
I got you. So again, I would just encourage folks to.
So what do you? So what do you think about that part of it?
What as far as what?
Like when he was stating that, what the disagreement was between them. Like he was kind of confused on what they was disagreeing about, when it seems like they kind of like really understand, have a certain understanding about the history, and they see things very, very similar. It's just that he doesn't know why he did not allow for pushback, I guess, when everybody was not basically trying to rock out for the so-called democratic machine. Because that seems like it seems like what you just said, like really what he wants to say. Well, why have you sold out to the Democratic Party? Why are you not still, rocking very, very hard and calling them the task, and saying why would you vote for Biden when he, created a crime bill? Why would you do this where they basically are the prohibitors of kickbacks and things of that nature, big government, things of that nature. So it just seems like
but I follow Dr. Carr though. I mean him point out a clip of one clip is goofy. Locking on a clip of him talking about what you should be doing. I don't he's making that way bigger than it is, in my opinion.
But do you understand why he has that angst, Dr. Ball?
No. Nope. I hear people complaining about that stuff all the time, though, for years. He's just recycling the same stuff that people have always said when someone sort of pushes, especially in the climate that we're in right now, pushing for Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's definitely going to cause people are going to be uncomfortable. Now, what Dr. Cobb probably should do is go into more detail of exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Because, like he said, he's not really explaining necessarily. They're getting into a whole bunch of other stuff. We already talked. We were saying that he just said it much more eloquently and gave you more facts, right? Right. We said the same thing. And like, you got to do what you got to do. This is where we're at. So, I mean, what are you really talking about at the end of the day? If I'm trying to get certain things done, you got to deal with that. It's like a grown-up. It's almost like a grown-up thing in the society. A lot of things you have to deal with. So, what's the argument? But then I know what he's trying to say as well, as far as just from a conscious perspective. He wants to say that Dr. Carr looked at, I guess, at a certain way, and should hold one position, mm-hmm. and should be promoting things in a certain way, and don't ever start to come out of that space and become really more political, right? And start promoting Democrats and Democratic policies with Roland Martin. So I get what he's trying to say. Dr. Carr is holding his position, but in my opinion, he should be explaining what he's doing. Yeah. Not just talking about, what different people were doing in the past, but just sort of explain more about what he's doing, why he's doing it, that's what I would be holding him to. Mm-hmm. I guess he's kind of explaining using examples of people from the past, but I need him to really tell me exactly, why did you choose to move that way in more personal details, not from more of a historian's perspective. But I agree with him, of course, though. I agree with what he's saying. I don't really disagree.
With Dr. Carr or Dr. Ball?
Dr. Carr. I've been listening to him, both of them really, but I've been listening to Dr. Carr talk on Roland Martin forever. And if you listen to him talking, I heard when he said it, I just didn't think it was a big deal, because if you listen to how he's been talking for however long he's been on that show, or just when he's on other people's shows too, that's sort of where he's at. He explains things very thoroughly,
Like you said,
it's not no surprise. So, but like you said, I get somebody who are, I guess, quote unquote, more conscious or whatever, can try to call, and like you said, that's like you said, it is what it is, right? But those people exist, right? And they're gonna have issues. Matter of fact, even if it's me and you working in a corporation, and we're moving a certain way, people in a corporation, black or non-black, are going to have certain issues if it looks a certain way. Right. So if you're not talking a certain way and moving a certain way, you're going to have issues with it. Mm-hmm. There's going to be issues there, right? But like you said, we don't know like remember I can't even talk. Remember when he said it wasn't for you?
Yep.
That's the details I'm talking about from a personal perspective.
Yeah.
What are you and Roland talking about? Because man, you keep having to express. Okay, regular folks, however you want to classify that, they operate like this, right? They're not into nothing. They into hooking up, kids, house getting paid for, no car note, like taking trips to Disney World, or just being in the streets, hanging out, drinking beer on the corner, whatever you're doing. You ain't thinking about nothing.
Yeah, not politically, not politically astute at all.
You don't know who the governor is. You don't know who the county commissioner is. You don't know who the controller is. Don't care at all. You have those people, right? And you can just keep going. You can group us in. You can find. You know what I'm saying? You can tighten us into all those. Got people who are in college who are taking political science. Obviously, going to be more engaged, right? Lawyers, people going to school for law. So you can find younger people who are more politically active in college, right? They have the time, really. So what I'm saying, you can find groups of people and how so it's very difficult sometimes, because if Roland them are saying, well, my core audience are really just casual Black people, not conscious folks, not whatever, and not these, not that, and I don't move needles. I'm not moving people. Because see, when he said Dr. Carr, Roland has a big platform, and when you speak, it's moving people. I need evidence of that. I don't know if is that true? Do you think that's true? Do people follow Dr. Carr politically? I don't know anything about that.
Not Dr. Carr, no. I think that
I don't know what he's talking about.
More so Roland. I think there is. I think there is something to say that Roland Martin do have some level of influence with the conventional churchy, of middle of the road, conservative, a mixture of conservative, liberal Democrat that never vote. They would never vote Republican. They're gonna always be Democrat until the day they die.
Right. I don't even think he's necessarily flipping people either. I feel like he's just speaking to his. That's like Rachel Maddow. That's like Rachel Maddow bringing, like you said before, our community is strange because, honestly speaking, these people should be conservatives and they shouldn't even be talking to Roland Martin. So we're in this weird paradigm relative to, say, in the white space where, to me, well, let me not say that. That's not really true. Let me not say that. Would you consider them more? I would put them in a progressive category. So let me not say necessarily conservative.
That's what I put them. Not
I put them in more progressive. That makes no sense.
They're left of Roland. I mean, they don't feel like he's doing enough. They're like the Black Young Turks. That's what they are. They're the black version of the Young Turks, man.
Yeah, let me not speak out of turn on that, because really Rachel Maddow will be considered a corporate shield,
a liberal. She's what she's like, kind of like on that level where Oprah is. I mean, even though Oprah,
right? And I don't know if you read like Substack and stuff, but you have a lot of people who are out there who are anti-corporate media, anti-democratic.
Right.
The Democrats in general, but they're far less progressive. Obviously, they vote Democrat, but they're trying to get progressives obviously in office, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like you said, I guess you would put, because they do try. They don't. But see, but I would say this.
Perfect example of it. Like Nina Turner is not what you called your conventional Democratic, representative. She's leaning left of moderate Democratic ideas and politics. So that's why it's hard for her to actually get elected in the party. She doesn't get elected because of that.
Yeah, and I guess my issue is that maybe I'm just super sensitive, and so I don't like people talking to me a certain way, and that's probably more my issue with Black people in general. Is that the way we talk to each other? I just don't like it. So that's probably more my personal issue. Is like, because we shouldn't be talking to each other in that way, in my opinion. But we are who we are, so I can't change that. But that's the only thing I don't like, is that the way we are talking to each other, to me, just doesn't feel. It doesn't seem correct. When we're having discourse sometimes, and some of this stuff, it sounds personal and it sounds more emotional and not really pragmatic or technical, I think. But my point is that happens though, and that exists in all over politics. People have talk crazy. So it's not unique, obviously, but I just wish that we wouldn't do it, because I don't think we need to move like that just because of the position that we're in. I think we shouldn't be mimicking a lot of the things that the way they kind of behave sometimes. But I noticed that Rachel Maddow doesn't necessarily get called to the carpet by progressives in my mind. I feel like progressives do attack, and I could be wrong about that. I got to think about that for a minute, but I think they seem to tend to attack more the politician than the mouthpiece. I think. I mean, they make comments, I guess, about it, but I don't know what the interactions look like in the streets. Let me put it that way. So maybe they do hit her directly and kind of talk crazy to her. I don't know, but this is a public forum here, right? So I'm not totally sure if they should be having this conversation online. It shouldn't be on the internet, maybe.
I think they wanted to do it as an informational.
Because I feel like they're trying to call him out, to be honest with you.
Right.
You're enrolling, telling us to vote for Joe Biden, right? Because like you said, we have skin color things. So say if Joe Biden puts a bunch of black folks into the district, there was 120 some seats left to fill. In the lower court, said they're all mostly black. Now we could get into, does it really matter what your skin color is? Because I could give you an example in California right now where it's kind of funny actually, because it gets kind of crazy because I don't know if you know about all the DAs that quit.
Out
there about 29.
Then you got the gender piece. What is going to
so there's layers.
So,
but we'll just keep it on skin color.
Sensibilities of that.
If Joe Biden puts a bunch of black folks into the court system, so my point is this: can you make a black person happy? Does that exist? Is that a real thing? Is happiness having your own land? I don't even know if the word happiness is the correct word.
I just
satisfied.
I just
I don't know what the language is.
I just want. He gets to it towards the end. I don't think we're gonna get all the way to the end, but he gets to sort of kind of like what his angst is, and it's just not enough. And the thing is that it's never going to be enough for some people. That's politics is a compromise. It's not an all or nothing. It's not an all or nothing deal. And to think of it like that that's sort of childish, by the way.
Well, my thing is that just tell out the car. Just say it this way. We don't need all the high level talk. I don't like what you and Roland Martin is saying on the internet to black people.
That's what should be.
That's what you're talking about.
And that's what ended up coming.
Right.
That's what ended up coming out.
Stuff that they talking is like.
And he's like, you're supposed to be on my side because you know what Roland Martin talking about is some bullshit.
Just Roland Martin's a sellout. He dances for Hillary Clinton. He's all the Democrats' ass. Yeah, just say that and just get to it. Your show is trash. Talk regular. They talking about the former president was thinking this and the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment and
he's trying to put it in a policy
right.
And Dr. Carr is going to have him on that because he's going to be like,
he's
going to get things done. This is going to get things done. Like what you're talking about is not getting things done. That's just
nothing.
That's just talking.
Nothing. Just talking.
There's a place for that, but you understand that's just talking at the end of the day. So I want to get to that part that kind of show the back and forth. They're going to get into it just here and then we can cut it off and then we can kind of jump off. But I thought that was kind of important because I hear there's a lot of discussions about black people voting. Should we vote? Should we not vote? And I thought this was an interesting representation of both of those viewpoints. So very good, man. Very good discussion.
Okay.
If
anybody's
going to hear me talk through a thing, and God knows, especially since COVID, that's all we've been doing is looking at these computers and talking. I would encourage them to look beyond a 30-second or a minute or 2 minute, even in that context, whatever that was in that context, to look beyond that to the larger scope of what I was saying, even in any of those contexts. But the other thing, though, is let me just so I'm clear, because again, thinking about Moyne, these elite, and I have said this, and I think this probably for me, I think would probably be closer to a critique of the quote unquote left. Although one of the things is clear is there really is no black left, right? Or am I overstating that? Would you say? I mean,
I think you are overstating that. I think you are overstating it.
Okay, but why would you say I'm overstating? I know there's a category called black left, but I mean, once upon closer examination, I'm wondering if the black left is as even as unified and as in dialogue with itself as much as even in the 70s and 80s, in the middle of these that kind of watershed moment that we all refer to, or even going back before that, the 30s and 40s. You start talking about, or the 20s with the African Blood Brotherhood, or the 30s and 40s with the Civil Rights Congresses, and you know, the Negro National Congress, or the first SNCC, Southern Negro Youth Conference. I look at the Black left now, and I think about those who are clearly have nothing to do with these elite institutions. And by elite institutions, I'm going to group in this sentence us in it, because we college professors, and then take us out of it, because the Moines of the world and the Ivy Leaguers of the world don't even look at us as being in the same profession. I mean, there's a little condescension there. And of course, that contempt is mutual. I know we don't give a fuck about them. But in fact, I was reading the complaint of the students who were sexually harassed by the cat Komarov, who we all know, the Africanist at Harvard. And on the first page of the complaint, they say Harvard University is a prestigious institution. I said, here we go again. Y'all were there clout chasing and got caught up in some foolishness, because we know that patriarchy is at work in those spaces. And usually, it's don't ask, don't tell. And everybody will stand with y'all, but at the same time, there's also classism in that. So when I say the Black left, I'm very clear about the larger formation, but in terms of how that works in the real world, I just say this. And this is where it comes down, and maybe this is a point of disagreement on voting or not voting for Democratic candidates. And I think this is very specific. When I'm thinking about just judicial appointments to federal level, sure, there's the Supreme Court, but we know that there are 13 courts of appeals. By the way, the appeals court judges are the ones that appoint the bankruptcy judges. And then there are the district courts, the 94 district courts. Most of the federal decision making is at the district court level. And I'm saying, for me, I'll tell you very concretely what my issue was and remains. You know, fortunately, hopefully, none of us, none of the three of us, anybody listening, end up like Brother Ahmed Obafemi, who did a bid, or anybody else standing before a federal judge who has discretion to send you to a diversion program instead of giving you time. Or not sign an eviction notice, or do any of the things that really impact the people who we absolutely claim that we're theorizing and organizing for and with, injunctions. If you're about to get evicted, you making sure developers don't engage in knocking your building down. I mean, there are any of 1,000 different things that federal judges do at the district level that never make it to an appeals court. And of course, federal judges also appoint district court judges appoint the administrative judges. I'm talking about tax court. I'm talking about all those things that really our people run up against every day. Now, does it matter whether a Democrat or Republican appoints judges to the bench? It absolutely does. All you have to do is look at the judicial decision making. Look at the leeway. Look at the thing. If you want a better chance, now you're gonna get screwed by the system. This is why I say we agree on that. We absolutely agree on that. But when you start talking about the little things, I mean, do you want a judge who's going to order 10 days in the workhouse and $5 restitution and humiliate your cousin on principles and be petty? Or a judge who's going to give them a diversion program and a warning to get their life together? If you want somebody on the bench who's going to do that second thing, you're not going to vote for the White Nationalist Party, because they are looking to straight up hang our asses. Now, are the Democrats any better? Absolutely on that. Are they much better? We can have a conversation on that. But if one of us standing before that judge, I think the conversation would be a lot different. This is what I'm thinking. Anyway.
So a couple of things. So I'm not, when I'm referring to your public performance, I'm not talking about the clips on Roland Martin. I'm speaking in particular to the social media exchange you and I had with a number of other people on Twitter. That was condescending, disrespectful. I thought it was totally useless. So, and my point in that is that so that's one thing. The other thing is, I'm not advocating that we vote for Republicans. I'm simply, in fact, I'm advocating that we become Malcolm X voters, form blocks, run our own campaigns, candidates, et cetera, so forth and so on. That's a whole other discussion. But my real, because you know,
it's part of this discussion. We should have that discussion.
Well, but I want to be clear that what my issue with what you have said is not because I'm advocating that we vote for Republicans. It's simply saying that those of us who would not vote for Joe Biden should not be demeaned as if we have no logic to our argument.
Well, what's
So
your
that would
logic?
be one
What's your
thing.
logic for that?
So hold on.
Okay,
Hold
my
on.
bad.
So the other thing is so extending from that, I don't know. You set up a series of questions based on individual people appearing before a judge and what would we want versus what we wouldn't want, and obviously the answers are easy there. But I'm starting from a premise of the overall material condition of Black people in this country, which continues to devolve. The surveillance, prison rates, parole rates, probation rates, joblessness, inequality in wealth and income, violence by police, all of these material indicators, access to healthcare, prolonged unemployment, all of these indicators keep trending in worse and worse and worse devolving directions. And by the way, these individual examples that you are pointing to are largely straw for me, in the sense that they're not what impact the collective. That's what I'm most interested in. So of course, on those individual examples, you would have that. But even in our social media exchange, you actually were more detailed in your examples, suggesting that political prisoners would want to come up in front of a federal judge, and that's why we should vote for Biden in the idea that he would appoint federal judges that would be more favorable to political prisoners, which I have never heard anyone advocate or argue. And in fact, I quickly, the very next day, did an interview with Daruba bin Wahad and asked him that specific question, and he found it laughable that would be the argument in defense of political prisoners. Hold on. So these examples that you throw out in the arguments, I think, are missing. They do well to score certain points, but they're missing the larger point that I'm trying to get at. So what I'm simply saying is, if we want to see something actually, change materially for the collective, we need to be doing something very different than what we are being advocated to do on a regular basis, where there is a lot of funding, a lot of time, a lot of social capital being spent on inviting people to tell Black people to vote for the Democratic Party, despite the lack of what we get for it in terms of healthcare and all the other major things. So then, so I would think that you have to, I would expect and hope that, and would love to see where you could point to evidence that suggests that over time, voting for these getting democratically appointed federal judges has materially improved the conditions of the collective of Black people, which, as I've said, data continues to show gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then very lastly, in terms of this question of the Black left, I think you're right. We're not well organized. We're not properly organized. And in part, we are inhibited by those who are our master teachers, who consistently advocate in aggressive ways that we move ever more to the right.
Okay. Couple of things. Why do political prisoners go to court, Jared? I'm asking. What, could you hear me? I'm sorry, Zeno.
Come on now.
No. It seems like we got to go to the basics, but we got to go down to the basic thing. Why do they go if it's you?
You know what? I'll tell you what, and I'll paraphrase Daruba's response. He would argue that a lot of times people go to court because their spokespeople have taken over their cases and made arguments that work against their benefit and work against the benefit of the broader struggle. So that could be one answer. So but the point still remains.
Just rather stay, just don't go to court and just do the bid.
See, but again, that's not what I'm. But that's not obviously that's not what I'm advocating. I'm asking you, that's what I'm saying. These individual examples are not my point. Obviously, in an individual case, someone wants to see a judge that will benefit them. But as we just saw with Mumia, there was a Black woman judge. I would have to assume, maybe I'm wrong, came up through the Democratic Party, who denied him his day in court.
There's no question about it. And in fact,
I'm just saying. I
watched y'all had a conversation. I watched you, Todd, Lynn Washington, going back through the trial record of Mumia, and that was just before I came to Philly. So I've been out them streets many times with Mama Pam Africa and everybody else going with me. But if you look at how even Mumia approached that, to me, I have no problem with how Mumia approached his trial. But here's the thing. If we're talking about heightening contradictions in a system that is clearly deteriorating, then let's have at it. Absolutely. But the simple fact of the matter is, I don't know if except for the Supreme Court decisions, beginning with Charlie Houston and them boys in the 30s and 40s, and leading to Shelley versus Kramer in 1948, that you'll be living in that neighborhood right now. They still have restrictive covenants in the court. In other words, that is a material. In fact, I know I wouldn't have grown up in the house I grew up with in Nashville because they had a restrictive covenant in there. And when the white man who sold my father the house across the street from my uncle, that little house in South Nashville I grew up in, when he sold it to a white man the day after because it had a restrictive covenant in there, my father went and got Z. Alexander Luby, Nashville's best known black civil rights attorney, and got it thrown out of court. But that's post Shelley versus Kramer. That is an absolute law that comes out. In fact, a predecessor of that is the Chicago case, Hansberry versus Lee, when we see Raising in the Sun. That whole conversation about moving into a white neighborhood, Lorraine Hansberry's father was the plaintiff in Hansberry versus Lee. By the way, we know that's William Leo Hansberry's niece. That was Hansberry's brother, William Leo Hansberry. That is a concrete change in the material conditions of now. Let's be clear though, in terms of that ain't no panacea, because guess who that helped the most? We know in housing, in employment discrimination, in education, in voting rights. The major critique is that all of those changes in laws help the black petty bourgeoisie more than the masses. Absolutely. I'm not defending. In other words, this isn't a panacea or a be all and end all, but the simple fact of the matter is, by the way, parenthetically, what's the sister's name at Morgan, who's got the Title VII case? My friend Addison Francois is defending her. I saw y'all had him on the show. He used to teach at Howard Law before he went
Leah Hollis?
Yeah.
Dr. Hollis?
Is that the sister? Right. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is going before a judge. And gender is, they have 3 levels of scrutiny when you start talking about discrimination. The basic level of scrutiny means basically the state ain't got to show you shit. Strict scrutiny, that's race. And that's where John Roberts and them are running a Boston on us at the Supreme Court at this point. And it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. One of the cases that they're going to knock the teeth out of affirmative action probably in the next 6 months. They've taken that case, the Harvard case. But in between is what they call intermediate level of scrutiny. When a woman goes before the federal bench on these issues, it's really going to depend on whether she gets takes a jury trial or a judge trial, if it's a judge or not, even the instructions the judge gives to the jury. This is all about perception, because those statutes are plain language, but the interpretation is going to determine whether or not she finds some modicum of relief. And Title VII is a federal law under the Civil Rights Act of 64, policy that was passed by elected officials that the white nationalists balked from, that they've been trying to punish us ever since by. And so it's more nuanced than voting is a panacea. This our strategy. Let's go vote blue or die. That's absurd. I think it's also absurd to withdraw from the field of political combat and electoral politics as long as there's a 2-party system, realizing that we don't equate political party organizing with the 2-party system, and we never have. Even that's why when I see people sometimes go back and quote Du Bois, he said he wasn't going to vote. Yeah, could you go back to that period and look at Eisenhower and understand that if Eisenhower was alive today in the White House, he would be considered a left Democrat in this 2-party system, which is, of course, is absurd. But Du Bois's choices are very different in the 1950s before he left for good than our choices are now. And so I'll just end with this. That's all we have as individuals. There's no such thing as the masses of the people. Yes. In fact, no. Let's go to the Italians and the French. What's Antonio Negri and them guys? When they talk about multitudes, in other words, we choose to be in communities. We choose to be in community. I was just talking to Howard French about that. You know, as we were born in blackness, this whole notion of when we call ourselves African people, that's not a declaration that comes with a common lens and a common set. That's something we have to work toward and work at. So when I say that somebody is worried about getting evicted, or somebody's worried about a different sentence and worried about not getting diversion, or somebody's worried about anything before a judge, that person is an individual, but they do represent a class of people who are suffering under those same conditions. And when that class of people decide to get together and become something other than just a group of people to which this applies, that's the organizing work we have to do.
Okay, so a couple of things. So one, if
we're going to move on right after this, this point.
But if more people did what Du Bois did then, maybe we wouldn't be where we are now. If more people would stop accepting all of the, again, social invitation and social capital, all of the actual investment that comes from the Democratic Party filtering down through all this black commercial press that encourages all of this return to the Democrat. If more people did not do that, if more people in your position, if more of the luminaries on whatever brand of the left we have would stop not only encouraging and voting for these Democrats, but again, castigating those of us who would want to raise other alternatives, then maybe what Du Bois did would have been the spark of an actual revolutionary change, as opposed to a one-off, correct, I think, decision that he was making. In general, I think your argument also throughout this so far this evening devalues the role of unsanctioned, organized rebelliousness, even sometimes disorganized rebelliousness. So all of the advances, so-called, that you've described, all of them have been led by, they weren't led by the federal government making changes. They were led by people at the bottom, the enslaved, the labor struggles, all of that, pushing upward and forcing change and forcing the system to rebrand and resituate itself to find new ways, more sophisticated, ever more sophisticated ways to oppress us. So, and again, when the response from you and others is shut up, and you're walking away from the battle and all this other stuff without laying out, I think, even as much as you've done tonight, your actual argument, I think it's not only anti-historical, but it really does us a disservice. Again, we don't have to agree. I'm not even here trying to win against you some argument. I'm really trying to implore you to do better at making your own argument without being so dismissive of all these beautiful radical traditions that have actually led to the change that has occurred, that has not come from the federal judges and courts and elite politicians.
I keep trying to understand where I did that. Just give. I
quoted it. I quoted you on the Roland Martin show, telling people to shut up. But Dr. Carr,
what were we talking about? What were we talking about that night? I don't even remember.
You were talking about Biden deciding which black woman he was going to select for SCOTUS. Okay. But my point is that statement has been consistent with your approach, again, in the direct exchange with me, which I still have saved, bookmarked on Twitter.
It was Twitter.
But that's even my point. But that's exactly my point. Gentlemen, when you come out there and be so disrespectful and so
we're gonna move it along a little bit. We're gonna move it along a little bit. Because we're clear about both positions on
I don't see what we disagreeing on yet. I still haven't heard how I undermine the radical agenda. I understand the radical
by not talking about it. By not highlighting it in your argument as to why. I said this in my opening.
I'm about to pull the gavel out in a minute.
but I'm sorry. I will stop and say, I just want to be very clear. But because Dr. Carr, you're saying you're not clear. I want to say exactly what I said from the beginning. That most importantly, I wrote it down. Most importantly, your role as master teacher goes unfulfilled when you chastise righteously angry black people by telling them to shut up and by denying them your expertise on these histories and movements of other more powerful and meaningful ways to impose change. You sound too much like your Roland Martin colleague, Michael Cord, who called black people refusing to vote for Biden traitors, or like Biden himself, who had the audacity to suggest a refusal to vote for him was to not be black at all. You sound more angry at us than you do with the black capitalists who are creating this problem. That's what I said.
I do not. I can't claim that, brother. And I got to defend my man, Mike Cord. You know, Mike Cord is a defense attorney in Philly. He goes to that court every day. And so Mike is a lot sharp tongued. I wouldn't agree with Mike on using that kind of rhetoric. I wouldn't say that at all. But what I'm saying is Mike sees the real world implications of the white nationalists if they get in power. He's a defense attorney to first degree. You can ask Pam African about Mike Cord and probably some people watching tonight. But yeah, if I sound like Mike Cord, I would see, I'm a lot more conciliatory. Anyway, I'm sorry, Kalanji. We can go on, brother. I done started talking again. Let's go. Let's keep going.
It's all good. I expected y'all, that's why. And I see I'm in reverse. I'm the one with the button down on. I'm gonna have to take this joint off.
I'm sorry, bro. Be the judge. We in your courtroom.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. I wanted to because we're talking about electoral politics. We're talking about Democrat, Republican. I want to know what are your thoughts on building a third party?
Oh, I think it's absolutely necessary. but I think we have to also understand how third parties work. I mean, in other words, when you look at Gary 72, which is probably the closest we've gotten to some kind of unity without uniformity. When you look at that and you see everybody there from Queen Mother Moore and Barack, I mean, I got a name, Betty Shabazz, you know, everybody, you know, Coretta Scott King, Jesse, Coleman Young, all them cats that came out of the labor movement in the 30s and 40s. And the labor movement, and Jed, I would have to say this, I think, and that's why I said, and I qualified those advancements. It's not a bad thing for the 14th Amendment to be used to destroy legal apartheid. It doesn't mean that de facto apartheid doesn't continue in this country. We know it does. But at least for me, and I know that there are people, and I would even say left or right, I hate to use those terms. There are people who would say we have to heighten the contradictions to the point where even that should have been sustained until it became unsustainable. And so those people I kind of back up from. And yeah, it may be one thing for me to indelicately kind of label somebody or say, you know, shut up, or in terms of my critique of that kind of ideological uniformity without engaging the rest of the people, call it cosplay revolutionaries. And yeah, I did say that. Now that might, yeah, and in fact, yeah, cosplay. I would call that cosplay because I'm saying we all indoors and we all gonna go in to sleep in the bed tonight. So I'm saying it's a cosplay dimension to this, you know, as far as I'm concerned. But that's different than the Leninists versus the Trotskyists, and then the Stalinists, and then somebody taking an ice pick and sticking it in Trotsky's eye in Mexico. I mean, these are the things that these things lead to. So in 72, I think that was the closest we got to third party politics in terms of a black political party. Now, does that party run candidates for office? We know, and you know better than certainly, I think, I won't speak for you, Kalanji, but I'll speak for myself. You know much better than I do about how that works, having you with your engagement with the Green Party, which I not only supported then, I still think is extremely important. I think third party building is absolutely necessary. Now the question becomes, what are the circumstances? Is it local? Is it state? Is it tactical here and there? To then use that third party platform and formation to engage in electoral politics as a representative of that party. This was the debate at Gary in 72. This has been the debate all along. I think when we use the word party, we have to define what we mean by party. When you've got an agenda and say, here's the black report card. I don't care whether you're kind of, and as I said, the critique of legal reform is that it benefits the petty bourgeois more. I mean, in fact, Gerald writes about this all the time, Gerald Horn, Carol Anderson, you know, I'm in full agreement with them when they say that the Brown era strategies, which have their roots, by the way, in the 30s. And when you read Harold Cruz and all them cats, you're seeing that what they're really trying to craft in this country is a back petty bourgeoisie to be a buffer. But what we see is even the revolutionaries are either in that black petty bourgeoisie or adjacent to it. So even if you say William Patterson, even if you say Charles Hampton Houston, even if you say A. Philip Randolph, or even if you say somebody like, I don't know, Pauli Murray or Anna Arnold Hedgeman, or any of them, they still in that class. They're not outdoors in the street. I mean, they're not outdoors and homeless and trying to struggle and figure out where they're going to get their next meals. Those arguments end up in a position where we end up, I'll use Cedric Johnson, good brother, who, you know, writes a lot in Jacobin and has written that book From Revolutionaries to Race Leaders. Kalanji, you sitting in Atlanta, that's probably exhibit A on what happens when you put all your eggs in the electoral basket. Absolutely. But at the same time, I think third party politics, fourth party politics, multi-party politics, probably a better term. Multi-party politics is absolutely necessary, because what that allows us to do is build the kind of strength that can ultimately lead to that structural transformation. Now, the question, I'll end with this. The question we have, I think, on the table, and here's where I don't have a map to this, because I'm a softie in this sense. I don't like to see nobody suffer. So would I rather have a judge on a bench that's going to get somebody a diversion program? Yeah. Would it be ideologically more sound to have the draconian judges that's going to push people till they finally rebel? Perhaps. But I don't see anything in history where the lumpen, the proletariat, however you want to categorize that class, that the stick gets so hot on them that a mass movement emerges where they have been informed or engaged in study, and then move in a way that leads to structural transformation. You're going to have a rebellion for sure, as you say, unstructured, but that's the thing. I think, I don't know whether we agree or disagree on that, but to me, that might be the place where there's a disagreement, whether how we heighten the contradictions. Because yes, I'll stop with that.
No, that's cool. Before I pass it to you, Jared, I want to ask Dr. Carr, you said you had voted for Biden, so I wanted to know your thoughts behind that, because we knew he had his track record is like 50 years of hell, basically.
No question.
And you know, you said what you said in regards to the third party. So I just being curious, what led you to the Biden camp? I mean,
I'm not in the Biden camp.
No, I mean, but encouraging folks during that particular moment.
Well,
that's why voting for him.
It's very simple. I mean, and people will say, well, you know, people say vote for the Democrats because they're not Trump. To me, it's very simple. If you are concerned about suffering, let's say we're concerned, we're definitely concerned about the immigration issue. We're concerned about immigrants from anywhere. I don't care what their background is. Now I start with African people, of course. We have to do that. But if you are a Haitian who gets flown back to Port-au-Prince, and you haven't been there since the 2010 earthquake because you left after that, you went to go work in Brazil at the World Cup, whatever, and then the Trump of Brazil, Bolsonaro, put your ass out, and you end up having to come all the way up through Central America, and you at the Texas border, and they put you. The Biden administration did that. We have to rain fire on the Biden administration. Wait, Joe Biden ain't no hero. Joe Biden is not a hero. You understand? Joe Biden is not a panacea. Kamala Harris is not a panacea. Now, if the alternative is the Goebbels who they had in there, Stephen Miller, with that idiot Trump, and then you have the guy who they had to put out because it was bad for the commercial white-facing media, Steve Bannon, who has not only not stopped working, but you can see his fingerprints on everything. The elections in France, what's going on the border with Ukraine and Russia, all that propaganda. I'm going to say, and here's where I think the critique of me, and I don't even like to use the word proper. I think it's always good to have a conversation and try to help us. We all trying to get to the same place. And I think perhaps there's a vulnerability there for me to say, I would prefer to struggle. I would prefer to have better enemies in the White House. Better enemy for me is Biden. Better enemy for me is Harris. If people say a better enemy for them is Trump, a better enemy for them is the Federalist Society, a better enemy for them is stealing 2 Supreme Court seats outright, really 3 if you see the Trump shouldn't have been there in the first place, then hey, let's have that conversation and walk through the particulars. I'm going to say I don't think so, but if that's the place we're talking, then let's have that conversation. But for me, I say the better opponent in the White House is Biden and Harris. I'm not supporting Biden and Harris. I'm saying they're a better opponent. I'll take the position Linda Sarsour takes, and I understand that Linda Sarsour ain't on the, but I think it's quite naive to think that rhetoric notwithstanding. And again, I'll go back to the 30s and 40s for the example. When you got William Patterson, Louise Thompson Patterson, when you got the Du Boises, when you got the Robesons, 1951, we charged genocide. These people are in the same circles as Ralph Bunche and Channing Tobias. They're in the same circles as Anna Arnold Hedgeman and A. Philip Randolph. Anybody who thinks they don't, I encourage them to go back and do a little bit more studying. And so when you see the state turn on William Patterson and them, turn on Du Bois and Robeson and them, and these Negroes, whether it be Ralph Bunche or the rest of them, Tobias, like when they're in Paris at the peace conference or after the UN's founded and they're over there and they turn their backs on them, we have to have a detailed conversation about what are the implications of that. Ideologically, it's crystal clear. You've now split with them. But in terms of the tactics and politics, it's much more complicated than we tend to give it when we're in a circle talking about who's the good guys and bad guys. As John Henry Clark said, in some stories, it ain't no good guys. It's just that simple. He said, no, I'm not a Biden supporter. He's a better enemy as far as I think tactically, and I could be wrong. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Cool. I appreciate that answer. Dr. Ball, I want to ask you about the whole third party situation and your thoughts on Joey Biden.
So I don't know exactly what to do. I just think we need to engage voting to the extent we engage it in very different ways. So whether it's third parties, whether it's acting as a block within the Democratic Party, I'm somewhat agnostic about that as it relates specifically to the issue of electoral politics. But the problem is that I don't hear, Dr. Carr, you or many others in your similar political space advocating that we engage the Dems differently. all I hear is that we engage them specifically because they're the lesser of evil. We're not. I don't hear
That's what I'm
calls
saying to
for
you tonight. But if you watch me on Roland Martin, you certainly don't hear that.
Look, I don't watch that much Roland Martin. But I mean, come on now. I can't be watching every single thing you say everywhere.
You
do a lot.
30-second clip.
Come on now.
You know.
Oh, it was more than 30 seconds. And again, you keep forgetting that we had our own direct exchange, and we also had a little bit in private text. So, like, you keep leaving that out and keep acting like I'm calling on some vague. And that is, you keep also leaving out that I've known you for years. I've heard you speak for years in many different spaces. So I don't, please don't keep equating me to people who are making vague, unsubstantiated claims about what you say. What I am saying, though, without doing a scientific research project on it, admittedly, is that the overwhelming message is shut up. If you, as you said, if you think voting isn't important, make sure you fall in line and support Biden so we don't get, as you said, the Goebbels and the Nazi references from Trump and all this other thing. So it wasn't let's organize and develop a platform and make sure he's held to this platform, which is why, as you've already said, whether it comes to immigration, whether it comes to minimum wage, whether it comes to healthcare, whether it comes to student loan relief, whether it comes to AFRICOM, whether it comes to name it, the military industrial complex, there's been no meaningful change, if any at all, since he's been elected. It's been a complete wash. My point would be, okay. See, again, I mean, we could look. If I
let's do the question, because we kind of going back.
But my point is I'm sort of, to me, these two last questions are I think there's an overlap or a parallel in how they can be answered, because we can't get to a different approach to electoral politics if, again, the overwhelming message from even our most popular prominent luminaries is this caustic response in hostility to alternatives that are not, in line with voting for the lesser of evil. So again, we are forced to deal with Trump, and we will likely be forced to deal with him or something similar again, primarily, or at least in large part, because those of us who would not want to vote for the lesser of evil are constantly encouraged to. This is why, since Du Bois's move in 50 whatever, that we have ever constantly moved. So you mentioned, so I'll stop here, but you mentioned my Green Party efforts and end up supporting Rosa and Cynthia McKinney.
Of course.
The argument then was we have to support Obama because he's black, because he's a step forward, he's not and all that has happened is an 8-year plus walk back that leads us to the rise of a Trump that creates the response even among the black community who didn't even come out for Obama in the second election to the same numbers, to say, look, we voted for you. You didn't do anything. You even had the House and the Senate your first 2 years in office. You didn't do anything. Our lives continue to get worse and worse and worse. Black Lives Matter, for whatever that's worth, had to pop off during Obama's presidency, during Biden's vice presidency, because they weren't doing anything. And then their response, just like Biden's was to increase funding to the military and increase funding to the police. So so I'm just saying, yes, there are individual cases you can constantly bring up where, it would be a great benefit to have someone. Again, I've created a list. I'm working off of a list here. So I'm saying, and these are big things that most people want and would benefit from, like healthcare, minimum wage increase, an end to AFRICOM, a defunding of the military, defunding of the police, an end to student loan debt, guaranteed incomes, guaranteed jobs, like all of these things that we should be pushing for and struggling for. We constantly have to keep pushing back on the back burner because the constant refrain, the tidal wave of refrain is, if we don't vote for the lesser of evil, we're going to get a Nazi.
Jared, let me just ask you a question, but first of all,
So I'm just going to stop there, because I think that we got both of their points pretty straightforward from that particular point of view. They kind of like broke down what his angst is, the lesser of two evils. I've even actually used that as a logical point for people that maybe not be as politically astute. If you did not think about the more nuance of the appointment of judges, or funding programs and social groups and things of that nature on a national level, that is something to be talked about also. And then also the jobs that are actually given to the government here in the city of DC. So I think that their particular, I don't even know, because the more this is like my second time watching this, and I don't know what Dr. Ball want Dr. Carr to actually say. Like, I don't know what he's looking for when it comes down to it, because they're having two different type of conversations. Because I don't think he's disagreeing with his position per se. Do you understand what his disagreement is, outside of the more outside view of not taking a position and still being able to kind of like be politically making a political statement, as far as like not voting for a candidate that you deem to be insufficient, regardless of whether they're the lesser of the two evils? So you just like, hey, I rather withhold my vote and work politics that way to agitate some kind of direction to get a group to have a critical mass to do something for that particular group of people that decided not to vote.
Well, Dr. Ball has an issue with Dr. Carr and their personal conversation. That's all they're talking about.
Right.
He said he's agnostic and he don't really know what to do, and
right. And
so
that
he
means
don't even care about the talking. He's mad because they had a private email or text messaging, and Dr. Carr probably was talking and made him emotional. That's all I'm hearing. I'm not. Everything else is just nothing. You know, he wants Dr. Carr to apologize for talking, I guess, crazy to him on text messaging, because he wants to show him the text message. Let me show you how you was talking to me.
Yeah, that's when it lost.
So that was a 40 minutes of just somebody's wanting this guy to say, hey, you know, I'm sorry for making you feel bad. The rest of the stuff they were talking about is irrelevant to me. That was a personal conversation that was cloaked in, I guess, talking about just general politics. Because even when he told you what his list was, I mean, he's a progressive. Clearly, he's not really that. He's not even that anti.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his positions are all progressive positions. I mean, you know, and he could talk about that. Like I said, he ain't really even trying to really argue anything. He's just mad at Dr. Carr at the end of the day.
Yeah, abolition, eliminating jail.
That's just progressive. That's just progressive.
Yeah. Defunding the police. Yeah, stuff like that. That's totally left of the center. Completely left.
Yeah, it's progressive.
Yeah.
So that's what the progressives want.
But
I don't know if Dr. Carr is a progressive. So I mean, they didn't talk about that, of course. But
no, I think he claims himself to be.
He's just sad that Dr. Carr talked crazy to him.
Right.
That's what it sounds like to me. Everything else is irrelevant. I think it's just that.
So you think that's more the issue than anything else?
Well, he kept saying that.
Right.
That's what I was hearing. You know, Dr. Carr was breaking things down. Like, okay, I got you, but what about the text message you sent me? That's what I kept hearing.
Right.
What about our private phone calls you had? That's all I kept hearing. Because Dr. Carr, I think, finally got to the point where he was like, oh, okay, we're not really debating anything. You're more upset about, and he doesn't know what to do. Because the guy should just come out and say, you hurt my feelings. You hurt my feelings. I feel bad. Can you apologize? That's what he should have been saying. Because Dr. Carr is really like, well, I don't know what else to say because I don't think we disagree. See what I'm saying? So I mean, clearly it's personal. That's all I'm saying. Right. They ain't really talking about nothing. It's a personal conversation. They should have kept personal and had maybe brought a mediator in, on a private Zoom call or something.
Do you think that will be more confusion that they're causing with showing people this exchange?
No, no, it's typical stuff. I mean, they've been talking about this stuff for generations, so it's just a part of the ether. Really, they didn't say anything spectacular. Just recycling a lot of history. Really, that's all you really can do, right? They're not going to have the other conversation, so they're talking within the box of the system and the contradictions of the system, and just picking, if you want to position it that way and call them enemies or whatever to make black people feel better, which is what he just did, because he don't consider Biden an enemy. That was bullshit. But for black folks to feel good, or for certain blacks to feel good, you got to say stuff like that, I guess, to ease it in.
Why do you think that we don't have a grasp of how this thing really works? Like, why do you think we reject it wholesale?
You mean commoners?
Yeah,
I think commoners. I mean, come on, man. Commoners in general, don't
but
they?
we just talked about how other people that are commoners, where they're hyperactive into voting, they're hyper into participating in the process. But then you got our group, or the classification part of it, that decide to just be apathetic to a degree, not as participant. If they're angry about, the more angst we have, the more we tend to just check out. That's what I'm saying, altogether. But still complain about what's happening to you. Like the whole deal, like, why are you complaining if you're not voting? I don't like that. I don't like that kind of dismissive thing anyway. I mean, there's a reason why somebody's deciding that this is not for me. I don't think that none of this speaks to my concern. So why am I wasting my time even dealing with it? It doesn't matter whether it's left or right. They're going to do what they do. So, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think that position is acceptable for sure. I don't agree with it, but I definitely think it's very acceptable. And I think that other groups of people have people that don't participate in this that have checked out, obviously. But the people who are, I mean, and like you said, the other thing too is that it's sort of also with regular people, it also, I think, depends on what's going on, the climate of the country too, right? Because we're seeing people at one point who was less active politically, blacks and non-blacks, and then events have happened to make people more political. A million people go to war, right? Invading a country, a couple of economic collapses, gas crisis. I mean, the list just continues, right? I think when certain events happen, you can charge people up to be more active in a certain window of time that could close, and people could become less engaged, right? But right now, I think we're definitely in a political hot season.
Right.
Probably at the highest rate probably in a long time. If I don't know if it's how historical it is, the last probably 1, 2, 3, at least 4, maybe 8 cycles if I include the midterms, but the last 4 cycles.
Yeah.
Maybe 5, but at least the last 4. So I think that so we've definitely had a lot of changes too at a political level. I think just because of maybe access to more information through the internet, or the Bush wars, the lies, and all that type of stuff. Everything seems to hinge on WMDs, in my opinion, for some strange reason. But there was bigger issues going on prior to that too, of course, but especially with black people and crime and crack and ghettos and stuff. So, but I don't know, man. I just felt like the conversation really wasn't about more than just personal issues that they have with one another, really. I don't know if it's anything more about politics.
To be honest with you, the second time listening to it, the second time around, Dr. Ball outside of the outside position of just protesting the vote, I didn't see too much there. And it's, I'm not trying to be hypercritical. It seems like like you said, his grievance was a personal one.
That's what it seemed like. A lot of black people don't like Roland Martin because he's caping for Democrats who it appear isn't making any broad changes to where like what I think black people need. Well, let me not say that. I think what people are, I put it this way: if you could recreate the middle class boom of the 40s and 50s, 60s, maybe people are talking about something that's grandiose at those extremely high numbers. You need to see that kind of change, I think, for it to make sense to people. Now, I don't know how long something like that really takes in real time, and would it take more than one president, right, across more than 8 years, maybe several different Congresses? I don't know, right? But maybe people are talking about bigger, broad. See, I don't know, because he said some really big things from more of a progressive position that I don't think this country is going to be doing anytime
No.
Matter of fact, I think the country will go into a revolution, because he mentioned the word revolution, which is very dangerous in my mind. I don't know what he was talking about when he said that, but this country would revolt, but it won't be because it could be because of a progressive idea. You know what I mean? Like if the government tries to implement a progressive idea, the country might get a revolution. I mean, you actually are getting one. That's the whole Trump thing, honestly. But
we're in the middle of one.
We might be in some kind of revolution in some weird way.
So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted us to take a look at that and kind of discuss that, because I mean, I've been in a lot of discussions with people where they have they have an apathy about voting now. They like, the discussion is either the Democrats are not going to do anything for you anyway, so either vote the other side or vote independent and just wish for rain. You know what I mean? Because there's no solidified political apparatus outside of the Democratic Party. That's the negative part of it, is that technically you're not running into viable candidates that can actually churn out in those arenas, not unless you're willing, not unless you're
and nobody gonna put in the work, man. People just talking nonsense anyway, bro. It's irrelevant.
What I'm saying. When it gets to the working part, that's where the rubber meets the road. And
he told Dr. Card that he needs to create a either an outside group for a third party run in different places. I mean, just the stuff is
he admitted
ignorant.
it. He admitted it. I don't know how to
solution. What are you talking about, bro?
And at the end of the day, I mean, that's
because it's a ridiculous conversation. You live in an extremely complex. It goes back to the empire thing. You live in a very complex capitalist democratic republic system with lots of layers to it. So these big statements are kind of stupid. A lot of what are you talking about? You know what I mean? I don't even know what do you really mean? Because the talking is, to me, it's like, can it be implemented? Is it doable? And how much can you do?
Is it doable?
How much can you do?
And then how much can you do? Is it doable?
So this is the thing.
How much can you do?
Let's keep it simple. 50 states. Let's forget about the power, right? Let's forget about the money and who has everything. We just pretend that they don't exist. Right? Let's just forget all about all that stuff. Let's just do just do the dynamics of just state structures. 50 states, 50 governors, right? 100 senators, 500 representatives, 200 people in each state's assembly, and we can just keep It's just layers and layers and layers, right?
Yeah, you're cutting the deck.
Okay.
By the end of it, you only got one card. But
how many states? First of all, how many states don't have any black people in it? 10, 15, 20? I mean, literally zero. And then how many states got 1 to 5% blacks? Another 10, 15? I don't know, right? So I would argue with you that do we have a majority?
No.
To run one state?
No.
Okay. So we can't get Senate power. Okay.
You don't have access.
And remember, and I'm talking about conscious black too, not some Merrill Lynch executive black person, right? Okay.
One black face, and then maybe a couple of execs under him, and then everybody else is white.
Not talking about that, right? We talking about people who are gonna make you uncomfortable, a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not too much, but just a little uncomfortable, right? that has an agenda, that you know what their agendas are. It's no confusion. He's not trying to trick you and try to act a certain way. You know what he's coming to do, and you just have to deal with it. Okay, give me one state. Now I want you to tell me, because you're the political scientist here. Just tell me where I'm wrong as far as just on that level of power. Forget everything else, globalization and trade power, be it IMF, banks. Just forget all the big stuff. Just very simply, if it was just pure government, right? And you said, well, we got 40 million people. We live in this structure that we first have to take over to change it. I guess if you don't even want it structured this way. And you said, okay, you're good to go now. We don't got the numbers or the states to even have the bigger conversation. When you say revolution, I don't even know what that really means. Really, I mean, you talking about with white people, with liberal whites, with gay whites, with which trans whites? Who whites? The white liberal corporate people who really support, big business, big oil, big bank, or whatever. I don't even know.
Anytime I see white people riding a skateboard in a commercial talking about we're ready to start a revolution, and then there's some kind of Coca-Cola insignia that goes by during a Super Bowl, I just I don't think that's what Gil Scott Heron had in mind when he was talking about.
I don't think so. So tell me this. How many states can we control, you think? I mean, realistically speaking. How many states can we control?
Can we control?
If all of us voted to get power, because unless we, or better yet, how many states can we overthrow? I don't know which word you want, however you want to look at it. Overthrow it or participate in it. Give me 3 states where we could take a position.
Well,
and tell me if I shouldn't ask that type of question, because it's incorrect as well.
Yeah,
maybe I'm asking an ignorant question as well. I don't know.
That's a reach.
Okay.
What state will we have the majority in to win?
I don't know how else you get power. Don't you have to run states in the Congress?
To be honest with you,
and the presidency? I mean, I don't know how else you get the power. I mean, you got to run stuff, I guess.
No,
right? No,
that's it on the ground. I mean, you have to run more than the cities. You have to be more on the state side and then the national side when you get it to the senatorial realm to get laws kind of passed in your direction for your state. But tell me
this then. Tell me what state can we take over? Forget the presidency. Forget the just a state, the state legislation, the state legislature. I'm sorry.
There isn't one.
Right. Yeah.
There isn't one. Not reality, no. I mean, if the chat could tell us one, a legitimate state that black people can legitimately be the majority and run. And now I'm not just talking about voting majority. I'm talking about being the majority representation, state,
right?
U.S.
Period.
Senate. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
All of it.
Sort of like how the government looks now.
Exactly.
you just make it in one state. You just want one state,
right?
To
give me one state, right?
Like
because if you have a block of states, we're having a different conversation, because now I have more federal power, which gives me more. I can put more pressure on corporations. We can just obviously we can just do a lot of things, right?
You could press.
We can change. Right, we can change maybe constitutional rules and things. We can get things.
It's just one. You can still be isolated, even though it's just one. But you can still press. But the fact that you don't have one is this. I mean, I would say
problematic.
I would say Latinos are closer to getting a state.
Scary, by the way.
By majority proxy more so than we are, and that would be most likely either Texas or Florida. Florida, because they're in the politics in Florida. Heavy in Florida, very, very heavy. From the legislatures to the law offices to all kinds of representation down there when it comes down to the Latino representation vote on the ground, local.
What you're saying is that blacks have to kind of coordinate across multiple states and multiple districts just to apply pressure.
Yes.
Any kind of pressure, I guess, right? With help from white people.
And you're always going to have help from white people, which means that you're going to be overall compromised. And a lot of black people that don't participate in the political game.
Political,
It's getting
yeah.
late. It's getting late. The political game. It's almost well, it's 3:00 here for us guys. So, but
Yeah.
in the political game, it's because they don't have, especially if you're dealing with somebody that's a little bit more radical in their views as far as the government and things of that nature, to still believe that there's going to be this so-called revolution where we're going to take over the government with guns and tanks and stuff like that. In a way, we got to fight with our guns.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a real thing. And I hate to say it that way, but it's just true. You know what I mean? And it's not.
That's your doom. You said no doom and gloom. No, you got to be, I guess, quote unquote positive. So don't say that. I guess.
Let me get off that.
Can't doom and gloom.
Yeah,
can't be negative. We all about positivity, being positive, manifestation.
As technology,
self-help. If you believe it, it could be true.
As technology advances, man, the more you're gonna be under the control of the so-called machine of the state. It's just gonna become natural for the group. Less resistance, more cooperation. I mean, we give up all our information in the cell phones we have. We're on the website right now where they have, I mean, Google have damn near your whole bio. So I mean, it's just a situation now where
I think revolution. I think revolution can happen. I just don't believe certain people can pull that off at this point in time. I'll leave that there. So
yeah, I'm gonna leave it there too, man. But you have any further? I was thinking about.
I'm done.
So we wanted to kind of come through and share some quick thoughts, man. But I thought that was interesting, man. Kind of see exactly what people's thought pattern is about voting, and but there's always these contrasting to vote. Does the vote matter? You know, should we vote or whatever the case may be? Doesn't mean anything. And hey, you guys, you got to decide on what you're gonna,
Didn't Cuba make a decision? You see where they at, right?
Who? Who?
I said Cuba.
Well, Cuba, Haiti. I mean, you can just go down the line. You know, there's been all kinds of people that have fought this fight, and
good luck.
It's tough.
Enjoy yourself.
It's tough.
Didn't Russia do that too, and Japan, some other places?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's tough, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough road to hoe.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Didn't the South do that too?
Be an asshole.
Just saying, who are y'all? Who are these people with all this ready to go energy? Don't put that work in. Yeah, okay. Soft as a pound cake, bro. You ain't even built like that anymore. They got you out here getting your nails done. See people talking about eating good.
You want to stay in line for your next pair of Jordans, man. That's the
come on, man. You drinking Starbucks and stuff, man. Come on, reading books. Ain't nobody out here trying to put no. You got to be, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why it was just like,
show me the soldiers.
What are we talking about here, man? You guys are.
You
both
think hood rats are soldiers because they shoot each other? Yeah, okay.
These guys are professors, man, and you're already you're locked in, bro. You're locked in. You're in Morgan State. He's at Howard. I mean,
no, he said it. He literally said the bourgeoisie is right next to us. We are part of them.
Right.
We're not out here starving in the streets.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just
stop playing with me right now. That's what he really was trying to say. Stop playing. We out here live. We comfortable.
Y'all good, man.
We comfortable.
Yeah. I would imagine. I would say that easily. Both of them make over six figures. So
sure.
So it's not
for life.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. So with probably numerous streams of income. Got people looking out for them and things of that nature. Got grants on
a couple of academics whining and complaining. It's nonsense.
Dr.
To me.
Ball is an economic.
Academics whining and complaining.
So he
but they don't put the work in. When they do, where they do that at?
He's locked in.
You know who we need? We need a Putin. We need a black Putin from the ghettos, I guess, right? That's where I guess he would come from. I don't know, or from the CIA. You know what I mean? FBI. That's what we need. You notice the guy. You notice the guy who if you look at who takes over countries, sometimes look at their backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like take Bin Laden as an example, right? you would have thought Bin Laden is a cave dweller, right? But then you find out he's who is he related to?
Top 1%. Top 1%. Yeah.
Billionaires.
Yeah. Afghanistan. Yeah. The royal family, basically.
Who radicalized 30% of the Republican Party? Who was that guy again? Was it Joe? Was it Joe the plumber?
No, sir.
Was it the cattle rancher?
Nope.
Remember the cattle rancher down in Texas who was fighting over his land? Was it him? Who was it? Was it the truck driver? It was a mother freaker from New York City, third generation Yankee, eating off a gold plate and flying in private jets.
Richie Rich.
Come on, man.
Richie Rich.
What are we talking? Come on, it's just
that's what I'm saying.
Stuff,
I don't understand. I
read
mean,
the room though. It's just basic. This stuff is right in your face. We have living history though. You don't gotta really jump out here. I mean, I know you want to ignore it because you don't want. It's just hard to live. It's hard to live in it when you know it. So I understand it, right? We understand it because we know when you know a little bit of it's like, oh man, we gotta live in this every day, and it's frustrating. But you gotta be more. I think you gotta just be more honest, though, man. They're having an academic squabble.
Yeah, I mean, don't deny the facts.
These guys are not gonna deliver. That's the biggest thing is that you got people on the internet, especially not even those guys. Somehow people think you're gonna get delivered by these people.
Right.
You got to break that church complex, and like people in this country, or maybe in the Western world in general, maybe all over the world, are always looking for some reason for a savior. For some reason, it's like this weird complex. You're chasing saviors constantly, and will make anybody a savior. You know what I mean? It's weird sometimes.
Well, Jesus did die for our sins, man.
Yeah. Okay.
The book says.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the same book that said you should be enslaved, right? That justified your slavery, right? That book.
Not for their sins, for all our sins, man. So
can you believe that we read a book every Sunday that justified us being in bondage for 4 centuries? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Maybe really 5 centuries.
I can believe it.
Minimum 1,500 centuries on the other side of the continent. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
How sadistic that is.
That would make it very easy for you to control those people that kind of like believe in that dogma wholesale more than you do. So interesting, man. Very, very interesting though.
Yeah, man. We can close out though.
All right, man. Hey, I want to send a shout out to everybody that came through. This is just one. We just wanted to kind of put something on the books, and we'll try to kind of come through. I mean, maybe sometime later this week, man, and get another one in, man. Get a little bit more consistent. But yeah, man, I'm good, man. Let's go ahead and close.
All right. But this is the Codebreakers. This is Paradox.
And this is D. Till next time. Peace.